Killing myself. Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, July 18th, 2022. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes is 7 p.m. Councillors are in the council chamber in Listowel, joined by the clerk team and IT staff who are supporting this meeting. I see the presence of a few other staff members and some delegations for the evening, and welcome all. We also continue to use the WebEx conferencing technologies for the purposes of bringing in those who wish to be brought in that way, and so we call this a hybrid meeting. Members of the public are also still invited to enjoy our live stream on YouTube. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in the chamber are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in tonight's meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the meeting. All councillors are present in the chambers for this meeting. Let us move first then to item 2.1 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and, if not already done, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Just checking with the clerk, I don't believe we had any pre-advice on this from any councillors. So councillors, at this time, the opportunity is yours to make any declaration you would wish to make. I'm not seeing any evidence of that from the team, so let's move forward. As already noted, some staff, experts, and delegates are remote tonight and availing themselves of web conferencing technologies to participate in the meeting. These are invited to speak when called upon by yours truly. Should any wish to be recognized, they should draw attention to themselves through our conferencing technology's text chat function. Remote participants are asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize your right to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or having some technical difficulty, I will advise. I continue to invite patience from all as we work our way into revised procedures that are a little different for hybrid meetings. There may be moments when I'm just a little slow to trigger things and moments where I miss a camera cue, and I hope you'll forgive that. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, an amendment is in order due to the withdrawal of a delegation by Mr. Derek Raymond, previously item 4.3. To that end, I have a motion prepared for our consideration as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended to remove item 4.3 regarding the delegation from Derek Richmond. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Duncan, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We're now at item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require Council's recognition and action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and or individual action may do so. There are 2 items, it's a lonely one, on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? I'm not seeing any indication of that, so at this time, let's consider a motion. The consent items 3.1 to 3.2 be received for information, and the minutes of the July 4th, 2022 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Richardson, thank you, and Councillor Seiler is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And apparently I need to mute my own computer here. All right, thank you. Let's move on then to agenda item number 4. Tonight we have 2 public meetings scheduled pertaining to land planning matters. To enable these public meetings, we must temporarily recess from a regular council meeting. I have a resolution that will enable us to do so. It reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceeds to a public meeting concerning the following. First, an application for a zoning bylaw amendment by Paul and Christina Schneider, affecting property described as Part Lot 17, Concession 10, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 840 King Street, Palmerston. And second, an application for zoning bylaw amendment by No Quarter Holdings, Inc., affecting property described as Part Lots 6, 7, 38, and 57, registered plan number 185, 220 Mitchell Road South, Listowel Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Anstead, thank you. Councillor Andreessen is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And the screen is showing that's carried, so we are temporarily in recess from council to permit these public meetings. Let's turn first to a public meeting under the Planning Act. Welcome to those attending the public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for a zoning bylaw amendment by Paul and Christina Schneider, affecting property described as Part Lot 17, Concession 10, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 840 King Street, Palmerston. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by Council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal Council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made a written submission to Council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk by email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I'm going to call for a summary of this application. I have it in my notes that this will be offered by John Bice, a planner for the County of Perth. And I believe John is connecting remotely. Mr. Bice, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. I just might want to share my screen real quick. Can that be seen?
Yes, although it might help us if we had the full screen display. Is that possible? The slideshow view?
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So this file is ZBA 10-2022. It's by Paul and Chrissy Schneider. It's located at Part Lot 17, Concession 10 in the Wallace Ward, or 840 King Street, Palmerston. The red star you see on the screen here is the location of the subject property. It's in the northern portion of North Perth, and it's just southeast of Palmerston. Some background for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. So this zoning bylaw amendment is a requirement of consent application B03-22. So this was a surplus farm dwelling severance application. The proposed amendment will keep the lands within the agricultural zone with site-specific provisions prohibiting any dwellings or mobile homes from establishing on the retained farmland, and will limit uses on the severed lot to one single detached dwelling and accessory uses. So the severed parcel is 0.54 hectares or 1.33 acres. And the retained farm parcel is 36.3 hectares or 89.7 acres. The severed parcel contains a house, as you can see in the southern portion of the subject lands here, a frame shed garage, and a septic system. The retained farm parcel contains farmland and a metal-clad shed. There's an aerial view for Council. So the severed parcel will be in red here, or sorry, in yellow here, and it will be rezoned from A to A1 to permit a non-farm residence in an agricultural area, whereas the red you see will be for the retained lands, and that will be to permit an A to an 862-3 zone to restrict the construction of a residence on the farm parcel, and also to recognize a reduced lot frontage. So, site visit was done by myself. I met Paul and Chrissy Schneider on site, and here's some images of the property. The PPS provides policies regarding lot creation, which is generally discouraged in a prime agricultural area. An exception, however, includes a lot creation per residence deemed surplus to a farm dwelling severance. Section 5631 of the County of Perth official plan includes policies to allow for severance of dwellings that are surplus to farm operations. We can go into a few more photos here. You can see the dwelling is considered habitable. There's a tenant living in the dwelling currently. This is the garage on the severed parcel that will go with the house. This image is taken looking along the rear lot line of the severed portion, just to give a perspective on where the lot line will begin and where the retained lands will also begin. This is an image of the farm that was, the farm, sorry, that was demolished a couple years prior. And this is the metal-clad shed to remain on the subject property. It is the intended use of the shed for storage purposes, and it will not be used for livestock of any kind. It is recommended that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 10-2022 from the planning department here. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bice. At this time, let me turn to the clerk to ask, or Mr. Bice, perhaps it's you, to ask about the information that has been provided regarding notice of this public meeting.
Yeah, perhaps Lindsay would be best to answer this question, if that's okay with you, Lindsay.
Hang on.
Applicable agencies. The notice was posted on the website and on the subject property on June 28th, 2022, advising of the public meeting.
Thank you. Now to the planner and clerk. Has there been any correspondence, comments, or reports received about this application? Clerk Lang first.
Dear Mr. Mayor, I have not received any correspondence regarding this application.
Thank you. Mr. Bice, anything on that front?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I have not received anything either.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the input opportunities available to those interested in this file. Anyone wishing to make comments are now invited to do so. We begin first with those who are in favor other than the applicant. Are there any who have declared or wish to make that presentation? The clerk is indicating no in the chamber. Second, those who are opposed to the application, have we had any indication or expression of interest there? No. Okay. Third, the opportunity is presented to the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak on behalf of this application. Has anyone expressed a wish to take that up with us? Okay, not. And finally, we turn at this point to the opportunity for questions or comments from council. Councillors, colleagues, do you have anything that you'd like to have addressed at this point? I'm not seeing any indication of that. I believe that means we can move to this public meeting's conclusion, which is that notice of the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And at this time, then, we can adjourn this public meeting. Next, we turn our attention to a second public meeting in the same time period. Again, a public meeting under the Planning Act. Welcome to those who are attending the public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for zoning bylaw amendment by No Quarter Holdings, Inc., affecting property described as part lots 6, 7, 38, and 57, registered plan number 185, 220 Mitchell Road South, Listowel Ward. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email and telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I will call for a summary of this application, and I believe Mr. Bice remains the man in the seat at this hour. So, Mr. Bice, over to you on this one.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaisenberg and Council. I have a few slides provided. I'll just share my screen again. And can Council see?
Yes, we are seeing the slides.
Perfect, thank you. So this file is for No Quarter Holdings, submitted by No Quarter Holdings, and the applicant will be Scott Patterson. Location of the property, part lots 6, 7, 38, and 57, reg plan number 185, or 220 Mitchell Road South in the Listable Ward. Just a quick note before I get in, I will acknowledge that the department's recommendation has changed since the report was sent, and we will get into that through this presentation. As you can see through the screen, the red star is the location of the subject lands. The subject lands are in the, I guess, northwest portion of the Listable Ward along Mitchell Road South in a predominantly highway commercial zoned area. The site plan submitted is before you now. Municipal Tire currently operates out of the subject property and currently operates an existing tire sales and service and vehicle repair business. The lands were consolidated with a former gas station located along the northwest corner of the site. I will note first and foremost that this gas station has been remediated and that an environmental site assessment has been prepared and submitted with the recommendation to proceed with development. Subject property is also subject to split zoning. So this is the reason, the former gas station is the reason for the split zoning, as this section was zoned C3 and the Muhlenstein Tire and Auto business was zoned site-specific C3-3. And as part of this application, a 4,794 meters squared section is currently zoned C3-3, and then a 1,449 meters squared section is zoned C3. The entire parcel, again, is subject to split zoning. C3-3 zone was placed by bylaw 9ZB 2002 on March 18th of 2002, and this was approved by North Perth Council. The owners of the property would like to construct an accessory structure for warehouse storage of tires and other products to support the business. The site-specific zoning that is proposed to allow for this accessory structure is as follows. An accessory building not exceeding 575 meters squared will be permitted within the front yard with a minimum setback of 6 meters. An accessory building not exceeding 575 meters squared will be permitted within the exterior side yard with a minimum setback of 7.2 meters. An accessory building not exceeding 575 meters squared will be permitted with a maximum height limit of 6.6 meters. A landscape buffer strip with a minimum width of 4 meters shall be provided on the subject land adjacent to the easterly boundary of the subject land, except in the area immediately east of the main building of the subject property, where the landscaped buffer strip shall have a minimum width of 2.13 meters. The landscape open space minimum shall be 17%, and the interior side yard setback for any building existing prior to July 18th, 2002 shall be minimum 2.3 meters. Finally, unloading space shall be permitted south of the accessory building as shown on the site plan for the subject property. Here's an aerial view of the subject lands. You can see in the white hashing up near this northern portion is the location of the former gas station and the C3 zone. All the rest of the property would be zoned C3-3. Site visit was undertaken. I met Scott Patterson on site as well as the owner. We went through the site and took some pictures. This first picture right here is the image of the proposed location of the accessory structure. This location was reviewed by BM Ross, and no issues came up upon BM Ross's review of the location of the accessory building. The location is further away from residential uses along the eastern boundary of the site, which is sufficient for noise and any dust that would come up this accessory building. The planning department supports the request for the accessory building's location. The existing C3-3 zone prohibits any access onto Elma Street. In spite of this restriction, there are existing entrances onto both Elma Street and Mitchell Road South. The site plan provided proposes to keep accesses to the property from both Elma Street West and Mitchell Road South. The applicant is requesting that the provision in the C3-3 zone that restricts access onto Elma Street be removed. Section 7.5.4 of the listable official plan requires that entrance and exit points be limited in number where possible and appropriate, and shall be designed in such a manner to minimize the danger to road traffic and pedestrian traffic. BM Ross reviewed the access points, both currently and proposed, and noted that there were no issues with the proposed accesses. The planning department supports removing the provision prohibiting access onto Elm Street. There's another view of Elma Street in the eastern portion of the picture. In the northern portion of the site, you can kind of make out the accesses that are almost continuous at the current state. Section 7.5.9 of the listable ward official plan requires that landscaping and buffering shall be provided between highway commercial zones and residential zones. There's an existing provision in the C3-3 zone that was applied to the Muhlenstein property back in 2002. This existing C3-3 zone required that a landscaped buffer strip with a minimum width of 6.1 meters on the east boundary of the subject property, except the area immediately east of the building, where the landscape buffer strip shall have a minimum width of 2.13 meters. The North Perth zoning bylaw requires that a planting strip between a highway commercial use and a residential use be 1.5 meters. The developer, the applicant, is now requesting that the planting strip on the east side of the property be 4 meters, except in the area immediately east of the main building, where a landscape buffer strip shall have a minimum width of 2.13 meters. This image shows the location of a large group of coniferous trees along the northeastern section between the Elma Street residences and the commercial use of Muhlenstein Tire. Here's another view looking south. This is the view along the eastern boundary. As you can see, there's a fence that extends the entire length of the property. The planning department is supportive of the planting strip provision as applied for. The landscaped open space provision is also a section of topic for this application. The applicant is seeking relief from the minimum landscaped open space requirement of 20% in the North Perth zoning bylaw, section 19.2.9. The applicant has proposed a reduction to 17% minimum open space, and this is an increase from their original 14% application. Since speaking with the applicant, there has been an increase from 14 to 17%. And this increase you can see in the blue arrow down at the bottom. So the applicants have come forth with an additional 3% of landscape open space that they wish to place along the rear boundary of the property. This is not a requirement. This location is not a requirement from the zoning bylaw. It's rather an ability for the applicants to get closer to the 20% landscape open space requirement from 14 to 17. And everything in green here you can see is landscaped open space. The planning department supports the request for the reduction in landscape open space as it provides adequate space for regular business operations. There is a small oversight from application 9 ZB 2002. The intent of this application was to permit an addition onto the Muhlenstein business with a reduced side yard setback. This setback was not applied during the 2002 zoning bylaw application and going forward, the approval of said application. So the planning department recommended in conjunction with talks with Scott Patterson to include this provision in the new zoning provisions going forward. So the planning department recommends that this provision be included to recognize the existing 2.13 meter interior side yard setback. The existing C3-3 zone on the Muhlenstein tire property prohibits the outdoor storage of tires. The applicant has requested that this restriction be removed so that storing outdoor tires is permitted on the site. The department notes that the purpose of the new warehouse is to store the excess tires and excess outdoor storage that is currently located on the subject property. This image is taken looking north along the northern landscape buffer strip. You can see there are tires stored as well as excess rims, amongst other things. And then this image is taken in essentially reverse of the one that you had just seen, looking south at the same outdoor storage of tires and rims and other items. Section 7.5.10 of the listable official plan states that outdoor storage is a necessary part of some highway commercial type uses. Where outdoor storage is to occur, such outdoor storage shall be kept in a neat, tidy manner and shall be fenced or screened from abutting residential uses and from public roads adjacent to the site. The department has been in talks with the fire chief, Janie Pape, and she has provided some comments expressing concern regarding the outdoor storage of tires as a fire hazard. Additional comments from Janie Pape were provided on Friday, July 15th, and then further comments were provided on today's date, which is July 18th, 2002. The planning department supports removing the prohibition of outdoor tires from zoning on the site with the requirement that, notwithstanding any other provisions of this bylaw, all outdoor storage on the subject lands shall be in areas defined on the site plan to the south of the main building. Outdoor tire storage shall be restricted to a maximum of 90 cubic meters. Here are some additional photos of the outdoor storage of tires. This image was taken facing north along the rear sight line, lot line, and then this image was taken just along the same lot line further to the west. The blue bin, as you see in this image, will be the subject of the majority of the permitted cubic meterage of the outdoor storage of tires. And I believe, Janie, if you have any comments regarding that, we can go to you right after this presentation. This differs from the department's original recommendation. The original recommendation, as you see in your reports, was to support the prohibition of outdoor tires from the zoning on the site, with the requirement that the site plan be required to show where the outdoor storage of tires will be located and be designed to the satisfaction of the fire department. The planning department has no concerns with the location of the loading space. And that will be the end of my presentation, and I will be able to take questions, or we can go to Janny with your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I think perhaps we will turn to Chief Pape at this point, just because there may be some expert testimony that she'd like to enter. So, Chief Pape, if you want to offer comments.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Good evening, Council. I think John did a great job of summarizing what I'm looking for. In speaking with Mr. Patterson, he did confirm that some storage is necessary for the operational needs of the business. And my recommendation to the planning department is that rather than a total prohibition, that we do limit the storage. So we, in working with the applicant, the 90 cubic meters quantity was discussed, and I'm comfortable with that. This would be an improvement to the current state of things at the current site.
Okay,
open
thank you.
to questions or comments.
Yep, thank you, Chief Pape. Okay, let's turn our attention now then to the clerk, and I'm going to ask for information regarding notice of this public meeting.
So here, Mr. Mayor, notices inviting persons to the public meeting were mailed on June 28th, 2022 by first-class mail to landowners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as emailed to all applicable agencies. The notice was posted on the website and on the subject property on June 28th, 2022, advising of the public meeting.
Thank you. Further, if I can ask about additional inputs, such as correspondence, comments, or reports that we haven't already heard about. Anything, Clerk Klein?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not received any correspondence regarding this application.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not received any correspondence either.
Okay, thank you very much. So that brings us to the open input opportunity in this meeting. Those interested in making comments on this application are now invited to do so. First, we turn to those who are in favor of the application other than the applicant. Do we have any advance notice of such? We do not, according to the clerk. Thank you. Next, we'll turn to those who may be opposed to this application. Do we have any indication of interested parties who are opposed? The clerk is nodding no in the chamber. Thank you. Next, opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak. Do we have interest in this? I see Mr. Patterson is with us, so let me get the right microphone set up for him, and we'll turn some time over to him. Mr. Patterson, let's give it a try.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. Again, Scott Patterson. It's nice to be back before you in person. Here tonight in full support of the staff report and recommendation, basically to answer any questions. I know there was a change in the wording to the zoning to allow the outdoor storage. I hope that's part of the bylaw that's before you tonight, if that revised wording is included, because that is a key component of this project for the Mulensteins. But again, if there's any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Clerk Klein, the bylaw draft that lies ahead, does it include the provisions or revisions that have occurred as a consequence of today?
Mr. Mayor, so there was a very last-minute draft circulated to me just before this meeting, so it wasn't included in the package circulated to members of council, but council could pass the bylaw as amended to include the new clause or new requirements.
Do you believe you'll be able to portray the sections that have changed at the point when we consider that in future?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. The planning department did circulate the revised bylaw to me. It was right before this meeting, so I didn't have a chance to circulate it to council.
Okay, thank you. And let me turn to council then. Questions or comments for Mr. Patterson while he's with us? Anyone? Councillor Rothwell, let me find the right button here. Okay.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thank you for the presentation, John and Scott. Just historically, this zoning that we have in place is a result of an Ontario Municipal Board hearing back in 2002, which is one of the reasons why the outdoor storage was prohibited. Obviously, things have changed since that time. I'm a little perplexed, I guess is my word, when we're talking about outdoor storage of tires, but they're restricted to the blue bin south of the main building and not exceeding 75 cubic meters. That blue bin that we saw, is it an open bin? Is that correct, or is it like a sea can, or what's the design of that? So I don't know. I can't tell.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to be honest, I haven't looked in the top of the bin. I've estimated its size to be 40 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 8 feet high. Works out to roughly 72 cubic meters. So that was the basis for the original recommendation of the 75 cubic meters. The discussions that occurred today were to try and expand that to include both the bin itself and a small area outside of the bin, just for some, I'll call it outdoor storage, because that's what it is. And that's basically to allow for customers to pick up tires that are set outside for them, as well as tires that can't go in the bin or just overflow until the recycler comes and gets them. So that was the increase to 90 cubic meters, was just to allow for the contents of the bin itself, south of the building, and then some external outdoor storage area that we're going to define on the site plan location exactly where that will be. And based on my calculations, it'll meet all setbacks and all requirements of where we can place it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. So when we look at the air photo, for example, and we saw the site photos, so there was outdoor storage to the north of the building, south of Elma Street on that east side. Will that be redeployed back in that area south of the building as per the proposed bylaw? And again, the report photo that came along that showed a significant number of tires outside, they're going to be sort of confined in terms of that blue bin and some of this additional space, as well as the warehousing building. Is that correct?
Again, through your worship, yes, that is correct. So basically, the pictures of the tires that were shown today, the intent of Mr. Muhlenstein is to, for lack of a better term, clean up the site. So any of the outdoor storage and the tires that you see now, the hope is that they will be moved into the warehouse. There'll be racking, tires will be stored inside. And the intent is to, again, reduce the amount of outdoor storage to the defined areas that will be limited on the site plan. And through the fire department, we tried to put that maximum cap in to try and give some comfort level to everyone that it's not going to be unruly on site and that it'll be in a defined area.
Thanks, Scott. And just my final comment is that I appreciate this, and as a successful business, and especially with the size and number of the tires they deal with, this is critically an issue that they need to address, and I think they're trying to do so, and I'm certainly in support of what's being proposed. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council on this application? Okay, I'm not seeing any evidence of that, so I'll read the statutory statement. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Notice of the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And that means at this point that this public meeting can be adjourned. Now we need to do something formally about returning to regular council. So I have a resolution to that effect as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns and brings to a close the public meeting concerning an application for zoning bylaw amendment by Paul and Christina Schneider affecting property described as Part Lot 17, Concession 10, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 840 King Street, Palmerston, and application for zoning bylaw amendment by No Quarter Holdings, Inc., affecting property described as Part Lots 6, 7, 38, and 57, registered plan number 185, 220 Mitchell Road South, Listowel Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Barons, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That means that council is returned to its regular meeting at this point in time. And now we have business arising from those public meetings for our consideration. So first, for item 4.1, we have a couple of pieces here. First is a resolution relating to approval, council granting approval here that reads as follows: that the council of the municipality of North Perth approves the application for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as Part Lot 17, Concession 10, 840 King Street in the Wallace Ward of the municipality of North Perth. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Behrens, thank you, and Councillor Seiler is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Next is the bylaw as follows. That bylaw... My microphone just died. No. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this one? Councillor Behrens. And a seconder is Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Now let's turn to item 4.2. And so we have two resolutions here as well. The first as follows: that North Perth Council receives the report from the Planning Department for a zoning bylaw amendment application for part lots 6, 7, 38, and 57. 38 or 37. Registered plan number 185, 220 Mitchell Road, South Listowel Ward, and that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment for part lots 6, 7, 38, and 57. Registered plan number 185, 220 Mitchell Road, South Listowel Ward. Can I invite a mover for this? Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this one? I'm not seeing any evidence from my colleagues. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, let's move forward from here. Next we have a delegation to council. I will remind the delegation that he is allowed a total of 10 minutes of time. Yes. Oh, did I? Okay. Let's pull it. Let's go back. Okay. It happens. Okay, next up is the bylaw for this. Thank you, Clerk Klein. That bylaw number 96-2022, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Johnston, thank you, and Councillor Richardson, you'll be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Not seeing it, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you for keeping me straight and narrow there, Clerk Klein. All right, let's turn to item 4. I guess it's numbered 4.4, so we'll keep that numbering on the agenda. This is a delegation to council. I remind the delegation that he is allowed a total of 10 minutes of time, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. The delegate is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations generally are not acceptable to the chair or this council. For this item, we have a delegation from Mr. Jamie Pinn, a resident of Listowel. Mr. Pinn has expressed concerns in the public sphere, particularly in social media, about the use of funds by council and the corporation pertaining to Perth Meadows. It would appear from the delegation form he initiated that he wishes to speak directly to council on that subject tonight. Mr. Pinn, the floor is yours. Okay.
I did see someone walk by the here to the door. I don't know if the door's locked.
Okay, we will wait to see if there is a delegate. Okay, we're not seeing evidence. CEO Snell is going to check. No, okay, and no login on WebEx. Okay, I'm being advised by the clerk that we're not seeing the delegate connecting to our web conferencing technology. He has not apparently attended at the council chambers. So at this point, I think it's prudent for us to move forward. That brings us to agenda item number 5, reports from departments and key staff. We have no reports from the CAO's department for tonight's meeting. Next up then is item 5.2, reports from the Corporate Services Department. For item 5.2.1, Council is presented with recommendations for the maintenance and repair of 3 municipal drains: the Silver Corners 1998 Extension Municipal Drain, the Ducklow Municipal Drain, and the Peat Municipal Drain. I'm not sure exactly who's addressing this. Ms. Marks wrote the report. Is Ms. Marks speaking to this? Ms. Hale, our Treasurer and Director of Finance, is on with us to speak to this one. Ms. Hale, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. I believe you summarized it quite nicely, Mayor Kaysenberg. We're dealing with 3 drains that have had maintenance completed, and we're at the point where we'd like to bill out these repairs to the benefiting landowners. And as noted, it was for the Silver Corners 1998 extension, Ducklow Municipal Drain, and the Peat Municipal Drain. And the bylaws are for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any first comments or questions from council on this matter? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we have a resolution, several resolutions, I think, all wrapped up in one, several bylaws. As follows, that bylaw number 88-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Silver Corners 1998 Extension Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And further, that bylaw number 89-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Ducklow Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And further, that bylaw number 90-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Peat Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this one? Councillor Johnston, thank you. And Councillor Anstead as our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this item? Councillor Rothwell, just let me hit the right button.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just a clarification on the proposed bylaw 89-2022, which is the Ducklow Municipal Drain. I believe clause 1A should be amended to say the Ducklow Municipal Drain as opposed to the Peat Municipal Drain. If that correction is there, I'll certainly be in favor. Thanks.
Good catch, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Duncan reports he's in favor, but eScribe is not behaving itself. So that is carried. Thank you. Next up then, 5.2.2, council is invited to amend earlier bylaws with cost actuals and assessment updates pertaining to the construction work undertaken on the Logan Maitland Municipal Drain and the Wilson Municipal Drain. And since Ms. Hale is here, I'm assuming she is our guide and staff lead on this one tonight. Ms. Hale, again, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Again, I believe you've summarized it quite nicely. The two drains the work has been completed. And at this point, we're asking council to consider authorizing us to fill out the actual costs to those benefiting property owners.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. I have a resolution to that effect as follows, that bylaw number 92-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3-2022 for the construction of the Logan Maitland Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And further, that bylaw 93-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2-2022 for the construction of the Wilson Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you, and Councillor Duncan is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. For item 5.2.3, council is invited to amend the earlier bylaw with cost actuals and assessment updates pertaining to the construction work undertaken on the McCracken Municipal Drain. Again, Ms. Hale. It's a very busy drain night.
Yes, this one's a little different in that all of the area within this McCracken Municipal Drain is going to be paid for under the Municipal Stormwater Management Levy. And so therefore it will be charged internally to that service, and that service will cover the cost through its annual levy.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hale. Do we have any questions or first comments on this matter from council? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration as follows, that bylaw 91-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 186-2020 for the construction of the McCracken Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this one? Councillor Rothwell and Deputy Mayor Kellum as our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ms. Hale. That allows us to move forward through the next agenda items. We have no reports this evening from the Facilities or Programs departments, plural, tonight. So that allows us to move to item 5.5, reports from our Manager of Environmental Services. As item 5.5.1, Council is presented with an update on a regional project pertaining to the commissioning of charging stations for electric vehicles. The recommendation is that Council endorse continuing engagement with a regional effort being steered by the County of Wellington. I'll call on Manager of Environmental Services, Mr. Mark Hackett, to give us a report, an update. It looks like there's something of a presentation as well. That's exciting. Mr. Hackett, welcome. Let me just get the right microphone for you. And you are on.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg and Council. As Council may recall, North Perth entered into an agreement with some neighboring counties to develop a regional electric vehicle network strategy for installation of charging stations between Highway 401 to the west over to Lake Huron and up to Georgian Bay and Bruce Peninsula. So it's quite an area. So those participating counties included Wellington County, which included the city of Guelph, Perth County, which includes Stratford and St. Mary's, and also Grey, Huron, Dufferin, and Bruce counties. So it was a large group. The goal of the strategy was to better understand the charging needs of current and future EV drivers, and to identify locations for level 3 and level 2 chargers to support tourism and economic development across the study area. And also finally to develop strategies to manage dwell time in areas of high demand for parking. So dwell time is simply where an EV driver has parked in a charging station spot, charged, and then remain there. And that can be a problem if you're waiting because you need to charge. So there's some strategies for dealing with that as well. So there's 3 types of chargers. Typically, level 1, which is one you would find for your home, it's a 120 volt charger. It takes approximately 24 hours or more to charge. They have level 2s, which are 240 volt. They take about 8 hours to charge. They can also be put into homes and often in municipal areas like tourist areas, restaurants where people are stopping for a little while to visit or to go to a movie or go out to eat, where they can charge for an hour or two. And then finally the level 3 chargers, those are direct current fast charging chargers. They're 600 volt and you can charge in approximately an hour to a full charge, or close to a full charge anyway. The difference being cost is the big difference here. For a level 3 charger, it's $150,000 installed approximately. Compared to a level 2 charger, is $15,000. That's installation included as well. So it's quite a difference in cost. So the County of Wellington was the lead in this project, as the Mayor mentioned, and they were successful in acquiring a little bit over $35,000 from SCM Green Municipal Fund. That was used to hire a community energy association. They're a consultant that was hired in the fall of 2021 to help guide this group. So they started out with doing some EV surveys that were sent out to anyone could go on it if they wanted to, but they're available for existing EV drivers in the study area and also for area residents who do not currently own an EV. And from that, I had 76, I think, in the report. It was actually the number of 67% of respondents were considering buying an EV in the next 2 to 5 years. I think that number might actually be incorrect, because when the survey was done, that was before the gas prices kind of did what they've done now. So I would assume that would even be a little bit higher, or maybe substantially higher. So in that entire survey is included in that report. It's a rather lengthy one. 133 pages, but anyway, it's included all the results in there. So the plan's been developed, and it's all attached for your information. It looks at where the level 3 chargers are now and where the additional level 3 chargers should go. And that's the whole reason behind it, is to make travel in an EV more efficient, more practical, and more available to people so that they'll use it more often. So the plan recommends adding 17 level 3 chargers across the study area. There are currently only 22. There's a map, I think, that we can try and get up there. It's on page 30. It shows the existing level 3 chargers. Yep, that's the one. And so on the left is where they are now. And then on the right is where the level 2 chargers are. And then if you skip ahead down to page 37, you'll see where they're proposed to go, and that's where that's where they would all be now. And then if you skip to the next page, page 38, that sort of it looks a little convoluted, but the one on the left is phase 1, where there's I'm not sure the exact number of ones being added there, but total adding 17, and the second one is second one on the right hand side is after phase 2. So you can see there's quite a few more level 3 chargers. That's just the level 3 ones that they're showing there. So as I mentioned, it's been divided into 2 phases. North Perth is scheduled to get 1 level 3 charger, and that would be in Listowel to service the Highway 23 and 86 traffic corridor. The plan also recommends adding 76 banks of level 2 chargers across the study area. A bank is where there's 4 chargers or more, and that's of the level 2 ones. The plan had also identified some available funding opportunities, mainly the Natural Resources of Canada ZVIP which is a zero emission vehicle infrastructure program. So there's opportunities there, and it also provides some models for ownership of these, either through municipal ownership or through private ownership is what they recommend. They recommend small and rural municipalities not own level 3 chargers, mainly because of the high capital cost and the ongoing operational and maintenance and potential replacement of that infrastructure in the future as well. And they also recommend that municipalities could own and operate level 2 charging stations, although that would be up to each individual municipality if they wanted to do that investment. So next steps include working together to implement the recommended level 3 charging network across the study area. The level 2 network is not currently being considered for implementation through that partnership. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be looked at in conjunction with other municipalities that may be looking at doing some level 2s, that it might be worthwhile to go together with another municipality just for pure costs of opportunities to find some savings that way. So the plan would include working together as a group to hire a facilitator who would assist with the RFP, with that RFP process for a third-party installation, ownership, and maintenance of all of the 17 proposed level 3 chargers. So there are companies out there that would be interested in bidding on this, and there would be no other cost to the municipalities involved. They would put them in, they would own them, they would operate them, they would charge for them as well. So North Perth participation through the initial project was covered through the 2021 allocation to the climate change coordinator position. Moving forward, the project design would see the third-party company fund the non-grant portion of the implementation costs of ownership, maintenance, and operation of those level 3 chargers in the network. So as a result, there's no further financial commitment required by the municipality at this time. So that's it in a nutshell. There's quite a bit of information in there, but the plan was to move forward with another group. They're looking for a company that they're going to put out an RFP for another consultant because the work with this consultant is complete, and it wouldn't be fair just to hand it to them. So they would probably bid on it, I'm assuming, and I could take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Council questions or first comments? I see Councillor Andreessen's hand up already. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Thank you, Mr. Hackett. I really appreciate this work in terms of looking at the growth of these EV stations being implemented here in North Perth. I have a couple questions. I do agree that it would be optimal to have third-party companies install the units for sure, rather than it being, something that the municipality has to bear. But I do have something for consideration. Would it be possible that in the future, stations could be located at our arenas, knowing that many of our hockey families, tournaments, that kind of thing, are traveling from afar? And if by 2031 we're going to have that expectation of more, and the majority of electrical vehicles, the arenas would be great spots for that. Again, through third-party management, of course. So, has that been a consideration at our arenas?
Yes. There's a couple things to remember. For the level 3 chargers, they really like them to be close to amenities or a downtown area. So the arena would probably be a little bit far out for a level 3. However, I think it would be an excellent location at one of our arenas or at all of them at some point to have level 2 chargers. There are two at the Westfield School. There's one at the one end of the parking lot, and there's one at the daycare, and it's a free level 2 charger that has two units on it. I'm not sure how much they're used, but I know that one at the school is definitely used because I've been by it before and see it hooked up. But definitely, yeah, this is open. The level 2 chargers are open to wherever we would want to put them. It's not really through this group.
Okay.
They had some recommendations for potential places, like the library, the municipal office here for level 3, the new EMCC in Atwood is possible for a level 2. So they'd be open to any suggestions for where people might think they would be worthwhile going.
I have other questions. Thank you. The next question I have is, and this may sound kind of crazy, but I appreciate your help on this. Can developers be directed to have not stations but hookups for the cars to, or the stations to plug into? Do you know what I'm saying? I understand that developers can't pay for stations, and that wouldn't be the expectation, but could there be some kind of, for multi-unit residences, right, that I'm most concerned about, not so much single-family homes, but multi-unit residences where at this point there's no way anybody could plug a car in because the infrastructure isn't there electrically. What are your thoughts on that?
That is something that was discussed with this group, and that there could be in the future bylaw type things or through a building code that would require it to be part of new builds. I don't think there are any of the municipalities that were involved with this group have that in place, but it's something I think you'll probably see more in the future. It definitely was discussed as in the group.
Okay. I'll let others take a turn and I'll.
I think I saw Councillor Richardson's hand up next.
Thank you, and through you, Mark Kasenberg. Thank you, Mark, for the report. Very good. I was just wondering, the station that's right across the street at the well, what is that? Is that a 2? Like in front of the well house 4 or whatever that is, the 2? Yeah.
We're at the Inkerman Street pump station? Yeah, it's a level 2.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one level 3 charger. It's at the Scotiabank. Yeah, that's the only level 3 charger right currently, and it's a privately owned one, I believe. I don't know that if they have someone own it and operate it as well.
And pardon me, I am having some hearing issues. Did you say earlier on that it wasn't recommended to have a level 3 charger? Or somebody was not recommending to have a level 3, or did I totally mishear that?
Yeah, what I intended to say, and hopefully I did, is that they recommend that the municipality not own them.
Oh,
that
okay.
There's other opportunities. There's private companies that would be willing to pay for. They would own it, they would install it, they would operate it, they maintain it, and they would replace parts and things as needed. Because it's such a large amount of money to put out for one, they would also, I'm sure, that's how you deal with dwell time issues, is have a charge on it, and it escalates the longer you're there, the higher the charge would be. That would deter people from staying there for a long time, more than what they need be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions or comments at this point? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Mark, for the report. This is certainly very timely and important. There's other jurisdictions that have been on this a long time ago. Nevertheless, there's no time like now to move forward. I'm certainly in support of what's been said here in terms of comments, and certainly Councillor Andreessen's point about in future encouraging those companies to look at places of gathering, and whether it's arenas or diamonds, whatever they are in terms of the times of the year. That's where people will also be using these. And I look at Moncton in particular, sort of the forgotten land in between Mitchell and Listowel. Again, it's a very important east-west link as well. Perth Line 55, so just shining a light there as well, in addition to the proposed Atwood at the EMCC and certainly in Listowel. Thanks.
If I may, that was one of the locations. I'm not sure if it was made it into the proposal or not, but it's one that could be looked at, was in Moncton at the G2G trailhead, because that's where you might get someone come in. I'm not sure if you'd want 4 there or not, but that is a possibility. I'm not sure how much it gets used, but and that as a encouragement for people to use it there. So that would be another one.
Councillor Andreessen, round 2.
Yes, thank you for round 2 through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Around the trailheads, I also, as I was reading this report, I was thinking about not only what you said about Moncton, but about Gowanstown with that trailhead there. And again, this could be, further down the road, of course, in many different phases, but not to forget that there's possibility of that happening in that area too.
Okay.
And secondly, I just have a final question, and I'm sure you don't have the answer for this, but it just really comes to mind as I'm reading it. Again, as we move to 2031, and more vehicles are, using the electrical vehicle type of perspective,
how many stations are we going to need in all these communities to support traffic, right? Not because, yes, we can plug in locally at our own homes, but how many stations are we going to need to sustain this? Do they have any idea yet?
I think they'd be guessing at this point. I know that was part of the entire reason for doing this is to start out with that there's an infrastructure in place so that people can get off of the 401 and be comfortable coming into a more rural area. That they have what they call EV charger anxiety because they're not, where are they going to be able to charge and can they charge, and nothing worse I think than driving up to a charger and there's 3 people waiting and you're 4, 5, 6 hours possibly way before you can even charge. So I don't know what that number is. I think this is a really good start that people can at least get around and move from place to place and feel comfortable that they're not going to get stranded. But I think there'll be a lot more of them. Maybe the price will come down.
I wryly suggest to Councillor Andreessen that the bigger concern is the grid and the grid's capacity for same. Thank you. Any further questions or comments for Mr. Hackett? No. Okay. I have a resolution for consideration then as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the Regional EV Charging Infrastructure Report as information, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to continue to work with the partnership to determine the next steps regarding implementing the strategy. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Behrens, thank you, and Councillor Andreessen is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Hackett. An interesting report. Let's see here. Now, next we turn our attention to item 5.6, reports from our Manager of Operations. Item 5.6.1 invites Council to proceed with the request for the improvement of the Boyle Municipal Drain under Section 78 of the Drainage Act and to appoint an engineer. Is Mr. Richardson with us tonight? Very good. So our Drainage Superintendent, Mr. Scott Richardson, is with us, and he will offer some comments about this report. Welcome, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, the Boyle Drain report for this portion was prepared in 1959 by a Mr. W.G. McGeorge. He was an Ontario land surveyor, and the bylaw was 1191. The request for improvement of the Boyle Municipal Drain was received on June 27th, 2022 from the landowner at West Lot 18, Concession 14, and is basically just for upgrading an existing low water crossing. Upon investigation, it was determined that the crossing was in very poor condition, and it is beyond repair. It's very narrow in size, so they'll be looking to probably extend the width of that to accommodate the farm machinery that's used today. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Questions or first comments from Council? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, proceeds with the request for improvement of the Boyle Municipal Drain, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Spreet Associates to investigate the possible improvements to the Boyle Municipal Drain. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion or debate on this one? I'm not seeing any. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's turn next to another drain, I believe. Item 5.6.2 invites Council to proceed with the request for the improvement of the Kells Municipal Drain under Section 78 of the Drainage Act and to appoint an engineer. Mr. Richardson, round two. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council again. The Kells Drain was originally constructed under a report prepared by E.D. Bolton, and he was an Ontario land surveyor. in 1923 under Bylaw 498. The Kells Drain is a very large watershed. It serves as an outlet for many other open and tile drainage systems. Before the Kells Drain was recognized as a municipal drain, the watercourse was known to be the Little Maitland River. The drain also captures sub-watersheds in Minto and Mapleton. The request for improvement was submitted to the municipality under Section 78 of the Drainage Act by Pete Chill, owner of lots 3 and 4 concession 10. The drain is shallow through this area and needs deepened to provide outlet for that proposed Gingrich Shill drain, which was recently adopted by council. To be included in this new report too, a new maintenance schedule is required for the entire length of the Kells drain. The new maintenance schedule would be complete under Section 76 of the Drainage Act. This would be my recommendation, as in past years, many subdivided lots have been created, causing this current schedule to be unfair and obsolete. This would also expedite the completion of future maintenance invoicing for our finance department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Questions or first comments from council on this matter? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution for consideration as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78 and 76 of the Drainage Act, proceeds with the request for improvement and new maintenance schedule for the Kells Municipal Drain. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Spreet Associates to investigate the possible improvements and prepare a new drain report. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Seiler, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. An engineer will be engaged there. Let's move forward. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Always a pleasure. Let's turn now to item 5.7, reports from the Development and Protective Services Department. Item 5.7.1 prepares council for a pending planning application pertaining to the proposed severance from a parcel currently zoned agricultural and creation of a new lot for agricultural, commercial, industrial use. The consultant planner on this file is Gillian Smith. Ms. Smith, we'd like to hear from you first.
Hi, I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So tonight I am presenting consent application B11-2022. The property is located at 6657 Perth Line 93. The report and presentation I will be making tonight is for informational purposes only, and a recommendation report will be provided at a later meeting. The notice of application was sent out and posted on June 16th. So the owner of the subject property, Patrick Wood, has applied for a consent to sever the existing farm property and create a new lot that would be rezoned for agricultural, commercial, industrial use. The lot to be retained would remain in agricultural use, while the proposed severed lot is planned to be used as an agricultural industrial facility, producing and distributing milk replacers. The product is a powder that is fed to infant livestock, kind of similar to baby formula. The severed lot would be purchased by Mapleview Agri Limited, who currently have existing facilities in Perth County. The proposed severed lot would have a lot area of approximately 3 hectares, and the lot to be retained would have an area of 52 hectares. Presently, the property is occupied with a single detached dwelling, storage shed, garden shed, workshop, and 2 silos. The proposed severed lot, which would house the milk replacer facility, would consist of a warehouse, production area, and an office building. And access to this new lot would be provided from Perth Line 93, which is under Wellington County jurisdiction. And so it would require an access permit to be provided from Wellington County. the facility would employ about 20 individuals and will require private servicing that would support the employee washroom facilities. So the provincial policy for the subject property identifies it as rural areas, and it is considered prime agricultural areas. Permitted uses would include agricultural related uses, which are farm related commercial and industrial uses that provide products to surrounding farm operations. The county official plan designates the property as agriculture. Permitted uses are predominantly farming uses of all types, which include farm related uses. And the official plan policies will require an amendment to the zoning bylaw for new farm related commercial and industrial uses. Similarly, the zoning bylaw zones the property as agricultural. And so in accordance with the official plan policy for farm-related commercial and industrial uses, a zoning bylaw amendment will be required to change the zoning from agricultural to the agricultural, commercial, and industrial zone for the severed lot. The retained lot will remain zoned as agricultural, and the zoning bylaw amendment would be a condition of the approval of consent. In terms of the comments received, 2 public comments were received from resident property owners who reside across from the proposed severed lot. The residents had the same concerns, which were related to the type and scale of development proposed, and they had indicated their objection to the proposal. Mapleview Agri Limited, who intends on purchasing the severed lot, has since hosted the residents at their existing facility to show them the type of facility that will be developed and demonstrate what the residents could expect from the new facility. And so in light of this tour, both residents have withdrawn their objections and no longer have concerns with the application. But planning staff have asked the applicant to complete a noise study in order to demonstrate compatibility with the residential uses across the street and satisfy the concerns that were originally raised by the residents. Planning staff have also requested that an archaeology study be completed prior to building on the new lot, which will require a holding zone provision to be applied with the zone change. So once the noise study has been completed, planning staff will prepare a recommendation report. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. At this time, council questions or first comments on this report? We're not taking any action other than to receive the report, but this is a good opportunity to ask questions if you have them. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I had a question, why the archaeology study? Is there something that would trigger that, or is that something common?
It's fairly common. The land has not been disturbed, so it would be a candidate for potential archaeology.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thank you for the reports. My question is your comments regarding the site visit which the applicants, or at least the proposed purchasers, have undertaken with the neighbors. I take it that was after the report was written, is that correct?
Yeah, that happened on Thursday of last week, so that would have occurred after the report.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Is there any requirement for odor study? Like I'm not certain that there's an odor issue with these kind of developments, but can you comment on that?
Yes, so to my knowledge, there will be no odor associated with the facility. I do know that the planner who submitted this application has that information, but they're only producing a powder. There's no feed associated with it, so there would be no odor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a resolution then for our consideration as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B11-2022 by Cuesta Planning Consultants, Inc., CPC, affecting lands described as Part Lot 1 and 2, Concession 13, Wallace Ward, 6657 line 93, North Perth, dated July 18th, 2022, prepared by the consulting planner on behalf of the County of Perth for information. Can I invite a mover for this? Hold on, the clerk is asking me, or is raised her hand. Let me just give you the microphone. Go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, there were a couple delegations listed on the agenda that were interested in speaking to this application.
Okay. Council, do you have any objection to hearing delegations who wish to speak on this matter? All right, then let's move forward to delegations. I have actually a list of names here, folks. Are they all online at this point?
I believe one is online. And then I believe there's a couple here in person.
Okay, very good. So the names that I have, the order that was presented in the agenda package, Vaisnan Muhanthan, who I guess is associated with the planning group, Cuesto. Is this person with us?
He's online, yeah.
Okay, you're welcome to join our meeting at this point. Council has given its consent to hearing from you.
Okay. Firstly, I'd like to begin by thanking Jillian for her report and presentation. My name is Vaishan Mohantan, and I'm the Junior Land Use Planner with Cuesta Planning Consultants, here to represent the applicant, Mr. Patrick Wood, for this proposal. As explained by Jillian, this application seeks to sever and rezone a 7.5 acre parcel from the corner of Mr. Wood's lot to establish a warehouse and production facility for the manufacturing and distribution of milk replacers, which are essentially baby formula for young livestock. The area of the proposed lot is within a section of the property that's considered as being unproductive and inefficient in terms of the applicant's cash crop operation due to its location in the corner and its irregular shape. The proposed lot is bounded by Perth Line 93 and Perth Road 140 and is surrounded by mainly agricultural, commercial, and industrial land uses. The proposed facility is an agricultural-related use that will be used for the production of and distribution of milk replacers, which are instrumental for farmers with livestock. The facility will support and be directly related to local livestock operations, as milk replacers are used to help with the growth of young livestock and will provide a benefit for livestock farmers in Perth County, Wellington County, and surrounding municipalities. In terms of lot size, the proposed lot is sufficient to support the facility, as well as any room for a future expansion. In addition, aspects such as setbacks, parking, loading areas, servicing and buffering from the residential lots to the north have been taken into account. A site plan was submitted to planning staff ahead of this meeting, which illustrates in more detail how the proposed lot will be utilized. For example, space will be required for accommodating the well and septic systems. Parking is to be located to the west of the facility for both staff and customers. The area will need to be dedicated for trucks to be able to park, turn, and load as part of the distribution operations. And storage space will need to be established for skids and other items. Moreover, landscaping is being proposed towards the northern corner near the residential lots to provide a buffer, including the planting of trees, which will address any potential visual impacts that the facility would have on the residential lots. With respect to concerns regarding noise, the proposed facility will be located over 100 meters away from the nearest dwelling. We acknowledge the importance that the impacts that noise can have when establishing an industrial use near residential. But in this case, we feel that the proposed facility will not cause any negative noise impacts given the scale of the operation, which is much less intensive than something like a feed mill. And also the distance from the closest residence is over 100 meters. And I understand that the application has changed hands since I've submitted it, but I have engaged in pre-submission consultation with the county planner, wherein the requirement of a noise study was not brought up. And we respectfully ask that the noise study be waived as a requirement, especially in light of the fact that initial concerns regarding noise made by those neighbors have been resolved based on a site visit to an existing facility. In conclusion, the proposal represents an establishment of a beneficial and compatible use that is in character with the surrounding area, will benefit livestock operations, and does not include more land than what is needed to support the facility. We request that the application be recommended and endorsed by council. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I have the name Brian Cunin. Brian, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg and Council, for allowing us a few minutes to talk to this. I'm the owner of Mapleview Agri along with my son Aaron here, and we are the company that is proposing to build the milk replacer facility. We're a company that started in 2005 and have been around and been on the list of the fastest growing companies in Canada for the last 3 years. And we've essentially outgrown our existing facility, and we've looked around and decided that North Perth is a good place to be. As far as the site, we actually, when we first received the noise complaints, we invited the neighbors to come and see, and at the same time, we invited a couple of the councillors, Dave Johnson and Alan Rothwell, to come and see the facility so that you guys would have a frame of reference as far as what the noise is and stuff, and what the facility, et cetera, that we're currently doing and what the proposed facility is. Since then, the neighbors were able to come over and see our current facility, and what Kim is here today, and the other neighbor as well. They both sent emails saying that they're not concerned about the noise that would be emanating from the property, and they don't have any concerns. The one thing that they have asked for is to have the tree line along our property line, along where the houses are, and we've agreed to that as well. And so we are, I actually, when the noise study issue came up, I actually went out there with my cell phone with a decibel reader, and the decibels were at the road across where the property would be, was around 70, and our facility was around 50. And so we're not going to be contributing noise beyond what is certainly there already. So I hope you can take a look at, and our planner has recommended that they waive the noise study, and I don't know, maybe Dave and Alan can speak to that as well. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cunin. I have next Paul Lubbers. Is Paul with us? Did Paul?
Paul's not here.
He's not here tonight. Okay, thank you. And I have Kim Culling. Kim, did you wish to speak?
Thank you for your time. We were one of the residents that were affected. We got a letter about the mill going in. That's where some of the concerns came up. Myself working in a feed mill years ago, knew how that worked, so it just kind of gained a lot of questions, concerns. We've been in our house for 15 years. We've raised our kids. We have grandkids, so that's where it all started. We did have a visit over at the existing facility. We went right from the beginning, right to the end, right to the road with the noise and all that sort of stuff. And just from doing all of that, we're quite happy with the recommendations that they have. We feel confident. We talked about the buffer that was agreed upon, which is, I think we're all happy with that.
Great.
That's about all.
Thank you. All right. Let me, I think those are the names that I have. Are there any others that are intending to present? No. Okay, so the clerk is telling me no. All right, Council, do we have any questions or comments? I mean, certainly we've heard that Councillor Rothwell and Councillor Johnston had some experience, so we might call on them momentarily, but let's go to questions and comments. Councillor Behrens, I saw you, so you're up first.
Oh, just a quick question. Just wondering, is there any component of retail space at the facility?
No.
No component whatsoever.
Through a dealer network.
Okay.
Basically from coast to coast. But as far as there is the retail, but we do have some local producers pick up directly at our place.
Okay.
There's no store or any of that.
Okay.
It's something that's prearranged. They call in and say, I would like to pick up my milk replacer, and then we send an email and invoice to them. So there is some of that going on, but primarily most of it's going through dealers. Dealers like Newlands and
Yep.
Spectrum and VW and basically all the feed mills in the area.
Yeah. Okay. There just was no mention of it in the planning whatsoever, and when they said that it must be located close to farmers, it somewhat led me to think that perhaps there would be a retail component. But thank you, I understand.
Further questions or comments at this point? Councillor Johnston, did you want to represent the boys from Britain in commenting on your visit to their facility?
I have more experience with their product likely than Councillor Rothwell, so.
Indeed.
There is no noise, virtually no noise. Like, I would say my farm, being wide open with the curtains open and the cows there, makes more noise for the neighbors than this plant, because it's literally just mixing product. It's enclosed because, you know, for safety and for quality purposes, there's just a fan running that's going to be drawing out, and the new plant will be even more modern than that. Like, this will be a modern plant. For me, I think it's a great win for North Perth to get a company like this into our municipality, for not North Perth but Perth County as well. And to me, noise is not an issue. And you know, thank you for Kim for coming, and literally all you had to do was go to that facility and stand at the road, and you would not know that they are manufacturing milk replacer there. If the signage was taken away and you were just standing there, you would have no idea. So I have no problem recommending that there's no noise study be done.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Rothwell, anything to add?
Good. Thank you very much. Just further to Councillor Johnson's comments, and thanks again to Brian and Aaron for inviting us. The benefit to the applicants as well as the neighbors is that this is an existing operation. We don't have to take their word for it. We can actually go out and hear and see the plant. I will say, from my perspective, because this is it's a animal nutrition, but still it's a nutritional product. The plant is extremely clean, and because it was started in 2005, even the plant where they are is relatively new in relation to other. We talked about a feed mill and so on. Nothing against feed mills, but quite often they're older facilities. There are brand new ones which are also very wonderful. But in terms of the food aspect for livestock, this is a very clean facility. And if the indications of what they've run since 2005 on their farm is an indication, I would encourage certainly the planners to, if they haven't taken a look, to take a look and understand is that the noise is perhaps an overestimate as opposed to sort of a standard list of requirements. But that's my comments, and I again want to thank the applicant for inviting us to attend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoy those kind of visits too, so next time make sure you invite me. I learn lots about our agricultural sector as I make them. All right, thank you. I have a resolution. I just want to check with the clerk. The resolution as proposed at this point in time is receiving for information. I think the intent was that council hear the whole story and perhaps give any recommendations back to the planning team at Perth County for the purposes of seeing the final documentation and the final work on this. Have I got that roughly right, do you think?
Through Mr. Mayor, from my perspective, that sounds right. I might pass it over to Jillian to see if she has any feedback on what she's looking for from council.
Okay. Jillian, did you want to offer comment here? This is sort of almost like our warm-up meeting for this one, it seems like. Is that your intent?
Yeah, because we've received the public comments, we wanted to resolve those issues before providing a recommendation.
Okay. I just want to check in with council. I think I see a lot of heads nodding about suggesting to the planning team that they strike the requirement for the noise study. Most of my colleagues seem to be nodding their heads, so I don't know whether we need to revise the resolution. Maybe from a formality and paper trail perspective, we probably should, and add that the council requests that the county planning team consider striking the noise study requirement from this application. Is that okay?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's have the resolution then, if council's prepared for this and there are no further questions. I'm going to improvise a little bit again on the fly here. The resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B11-2022 by Cuesta Planning Consultants, Inc., CPC affecting lands described as Part Lot 1 and 2, Concession 13, Wallace Ward, 6657, line 93, North Perth, dated July 18th, 2022, prepared by the consulting planner on behalf of the County of Perth for information, and that Council recommends striking the requirement. Let's be aggressive about this. Striking the requirement for a noise study to the county planning team, or the County of Perth planning team. Okay, colleagues, help me improve this. Did I miss anything in that motion? Seem okay? Okay, so that's the resolution. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell will move. Councillor Johnston will second. Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for your presentation and your interest in North Perth. I think you can see the enthusiasm of my colleagues for this new opportunity in our community. So we're much appreciative. All right, let's move forward next to item 5.72. Thank you to our planner. Sorry, I got to go back and get the name. Jillian, thank you for your report. Let's move to item 5.7.2. I think after this one we might take a break. I'm starting to feel a little withering in the slight heat in this room. So item 5.7.2 advises council of a pending application for an official plan amendment heading to the county council table for public meeting on August 4th pertaining to the lands in Elma Ward for which there is a proposition for mixed residential and commercial development. Susanna Reid, Senior Planner at the County of Perth, is our planning lead on this file and will now introduce it. Ms. Reid, welcome. The floor is yours. Let me just make sure the microphone's on. It is. You are good to go.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kiesenberg. This, as the Mayor has mentioned, is an application for official plan amendment to the county official plan. The public meeting is scheduled for August 4th. As it's an amendment to the county official plan, it will be at the regularly scheduled meeting of county council. So the application is brought to North Perth Council for your information and discussion in advance of that public meeting. Just background with regards to the location of the file, you see on the slide now that the property is on Mitchell Road South. It's across the road from the LCBO and Zares, immediately south of the Pioneer Gas Bar, between Kincaid and Wamley. The applicant is a numbered company, care of Nizar Mawani, and Pierre Chauvin at MHBC is the planning consultant on this file, and I believe that Pierre is on the call, so he's available for comments. He'll be providing comments and answering specific questions with regards to the development as well. So the next slide shows the location of the subject property and the area of the subject property. Oh, back one more. There we go. So this slide is from the planning justification report that was provided with the application. The intention of this presentation tonight is to provide information and allow council to discuss it. There's no staff recommendation at this point. So here is an air photo showing the location of the subject property. It's 1.85 hectares, 4.6 acres. And you can see the location of the property there on Mitchell Road South. The slide, or the air photo on the right, shows the neighboring land uses. So as I mentioned, it's immediately south of the Pioneer gas station, across the road from LCBO, Zares, and Walmart. It's north of an existing mixed-use development, and which is proposed south of Twomley, and it's east of residential development that is in progress. So next slide. This shows the the designations in the official plan. So the county is within a site-specific policy area in the County of Perth official plan. The purple designation is an urban fringe designation. And the slide includes the policy, the special policy that is on this site, which was amended by OPA 162. So you can see by the text that the uses on this property, if you just click one more time, the red star will come up again. The uses on this property are limited to commercial uses. So as the developer is interested in a mixed-use site, there's an official plan amendment proposed or requested to allow both residential and commercial development on the site. So the next slide. I just wanted to make the point here with regards to the settlement area policies and the provincial policy statement. And if anybody's had the chance to review the planning justification report in the package that you received, you'll see these comments from the consulting planner as well. So the provincial policy statement makes a differentiation between what is a settlement area and what is an agricultural area. So the settlement area is an area where built-up areas are concentrated and a mix of land uses can occur. This is different from an agricultural area, which is protected for agricultural uses. Then if we move to the next slide, and click a couple more times. There we go. So the point I wanted to make here is that from the planning department's perspective, we're considering the subject property is within a settlement area, as the urban fringe designation specifies that commercial uses are permitted on the site. So that's the site-specific urban fringe designation. So there is OPA 162 amended the designation on this specific property to allow the consideration of commercial development. If you just click one more time, Lindsay. Yep, and one more time. There we go. So this dotted red line shows the boundary between the County of Perth official plan on the west and the Listowel official plan on the east. So that hatched red mark in the Listowel official plan is a highway commercial designation. So for the purposes of developing this specific property, it's acting similar to the highway commercial designation in the Listowel official plan. But there are a couple of policies, and I'm just making this point because there are a couple of policies in the official plan or in that are relevant to the consideration of this development that are not captured in the site-specific urban fringe policy. So if we can go over to the next slide. Okay, so now I would just like to outline for you the proposed development. And Pierre, I'm sure, will want to speak to this, and he may very well correct me as well. So the council package that you received for tonight has two concept plans, Concept Plan A and Concept Plan B. And then subsequent to the circulation of the concept plan, we received this sketch on July 15th, which was after the council package was circulated. So we appreciate that the developer's vision for this specific site is in progress, and certainly it brings a lot of benefits to Listowel. If we go to the next slide. Here is simply a summary of what is proposed. So you could see Block A, Block B, Block C are all 6-story, 53-unit apartment buildings. Block D is a 6-story, 45-unit apartment building and also includes 7,450 square feet of commercial lands. And then Block E is 6,480 square feet of commercial land. So could we just go back one slide and I'll just show you those blocks again. So Block A, 6 stories, 53-unit apartment building. Block B, 6-story, 53-unit apartment building. Block C, 6-story, 53-unit apartment building. Block D, 6-story, 45-unit apartment building. and also 7,450 square feet of commercial space, and then Block E, 6,480 square feet of commercial space. So there is a total of 240 residential units proposed on the site in this version of the development, and there are 13,930 square feet of gross floor area of commercial space. Okay, if we could move past this table and on to the next slide. Okay, so now I would just like to walk you through the floor planning considerations that are identified in the planning report. They're summarized in the executive summary in the report that you received in your package. So the first is with regards to the commercial land requirements in Listowel. So North Perth has done quite a bit of work with regards to envisioning where commercial land will be located in Listowel as it is expanding and growing. Of note is a 2018 retail market study that was prepared by the Altus Group. And the table on this slide, well, first of all, are we able to move that? I guess not, or just move it over to the bottom left or something. So I guess it doesn't matter that much. So I just thought I would highlight here in the 2018 retail market study prepared by Altus Group, there are 3 areas that are identified as the where commercial development will occur in Listowel. One is the downtown core. The second is the north part along Wallace Ave. And the third area is where this property is located. So the table that's on your slide now, it's also in the planning report, is summarizes the 2018 Altus Group study and notes that in 2020, 23.7 acres is required, and in 2031, 41 acres is required for the anticipated commercial growth. So if we go to the next slide then, so when the the application for OPA 206 was received, North Perth circulated this to the Altus Group again for the review and comments. And I have shown an air photo here of the subject property, and the dotted yellow line shows the area that was considered in the 2018 Altus Group study. So of note, that study was particularly focused on the Altus, or on the Nickel property, which my understanding is that this property that's outlined in yellow is referred to as the Nickel property. And at that time, the Altus Group's conclusion was that there was the development potential for this site from a commercial perspective was 55,000 to 60,000 gross square feet. In June of 2022, then, the OPA 206, as proposed, was reviewed again by the same group in order to provide their expert opinion with regards to the impact of the official plan amendment 206 as proposed. So I'm just checking in to make sure you're following me. So what this is proposing to do is change the existing designation, which is a site-specific urban fringe designation only permitting commercial development. And what the developer would like to do is have both residential and commercial development on the site. So this information then is very relevant to Council's thoughts with regards to this development. In 2018, it was identified as that the potential for the site was 55,000 square feet to 60,000 square feet. And then in the, so the blue line there, which is, the yellow line is dotted, the blue line is solid, shows the land as it now exists, the subject property. So the subject property is outlined in blue, and you can see that the Pioneer gas bar has been severed from the land as it was described in 2018, or as it existed in 2018. So in the opinion of the Altus Group, with this removal of the Pioneer gas bar, this 4.6 acre site now could accommodate 40,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet of commercial development. So if you just click one more time. please. Okay, so this is, again, the summary of OPA 206 as proposed. So concept plan A and B were included in the council package. And then the July 15th design is what I've included in this PowerPoint presentation, as my understanding is it's the most current. So you can see that the gross floor area of commercial development is less than what the Altus Group has said is provided for, or is possible for this property. And Lindsay, if you could just go back one slide, please. Yeah, right there, with the map. Right, yeah. So this, I just wanted to come back to this site, so this slide. So the question for council with regards, or a question for council, with regards to the development of this site is where will the commercial growth and list will occur? So in 2018, the map on the right has been provided by the Altus Group. So you can see where the commercial areas are. So the question is, if 41 acres of land is required in 2031, the question is simply, where is that land? So if you could just please advance to the next, keep going. Okay, so that question is one planning question that is identified. The next question, of course, is that housing is also extremely important at this time. And I made the point of showing you where are the listable official plan policies and where the county designations are, in order to provide you with a background to understand this point, that the urban fringe policies do not have affordable housing targets, and that the Perth County official plan then directs the listable official plan to address residential development, including affordable housing. And the listable official plan states that a minimum of 20% of all housing units within the listable ward will be within an affordability range established for this area by the province. So I'll just keep going, and then I'll just make sure that I summarize this point. So if we go to the next slide, then the what is affordable housing is defined by the provincial policy statement, and the definition is that 30% of the gross annual income for low and moderate income households that doesn't exceed that if it's housing to be purchased, or in the case of rental housing, a unit for which the rent does not exceed 30% of the gross annual household income for low and moderate income households. So I know that council will be familiar with United Way's work to calculate a living wage. So at a living wage of $17.95 an hour, that makes an annual income for a household with two earners being $32,699 a year. And that is offered as one possible number or income level in order to reflect the gross annual household income for low and moderate households. And the median household income in North Perth is $84,000 in 2020, according to Stats Canada. So this is just provided to councils for background purposes to say that the affordable rent, of course, depends on the income of a particular household and ranges between $817 to $2,100 a month. So if we move to the next slide. So I believe that council has received correspondence now from the United Way, and I'm sure Pierre Chauvin will speak to this as well. The applicant is proposing 15% of the units to be affordable, subject to CMHC funding, and I'm hoping that Pierre can speak a little bit more to that, whether or not it's a grant program or what the status of this application is. So the planning department's recommendation then is, with regards to affordable housing, is that targets be incorporated into the OPA 206, the site-specific amendment for this property, or that be considered. So we move to the next slide, please. So the third planning issue now then is residential density and design. So again, the Perth County official plan and the listable official plan both have density targets. And because this is in the urban fringe designation, those targets are not relevant to this property. The draft OPA official plan amendment as worded by the applicant is to have a minimum density of 30 units per hectare. And I just have on the slide here what the densities are of concept A, B, and C, and the July 15th version. So you can see then that there's a typo in the first line. So for concept plan A, that is 69 units per hectare, which is a total of 128. That should say 128, not 28. Concept plan B is 95 units per hectare for a total number of units of 174. And the July 15th version is 110 units per hectare for a total of 204 units. And that is offered for council's information, the densities in the Perth County official plan, and this is specifically refers to Atwood and Shakespeare. It's not relevant for Listowel. Is 40 to 60 units per hectare, and for the Listowel official plan, 40 to 75 units per hectare. So in contemplating residential density, the significant consideration is with regards to the design. So what the planning consideration is, how will 6-story apartment buildings fit into this part of Listowel? So the existing residential, or the existing apartments that are built are 4 units. So what is being proposed, or sorry, 4 stories. So what is being proposed is 2 stories higher than the ones immediately to the south. And then the final planning consideration that's identified in the planning report is with regards to access to the site. And the site sketch that's on the screen now is the July 15th version. The traffic impact study has been reviewed by BM Ross, the municipality's engineer, on behalf of the municipality. And they have raised concerns with regards to the setback. So this is turned on its side. So Mitchell Road is on the bottom of the screen, and North is on the right-hand side. So does that make sense? The white area is the Pioneer gas bar. So you just sort of have to turn your head on the side. So the concern is with regards to the, from the engineering perspective, with regards to the location of the entrance off Twomley Road. So that's on the left side of the screen, which is the south side of the property. The engineering department has raised questions with regards to the potential conflicts with vehicles queuing from along Twomley. So is that an adequate setback from Mitchell Road to Twomley? The traffic impact study does not address other proposed development to the west, so the residential development that's proposed to the west. And now there is another proposal for the land south of Twomley, providing an entrance that is further from Mitchell Road South. So I'm not sure where this entrance compares to the July 15th sketch. And the engineering review is concerned that may conflict with the second proposed entrance on this development. So that concludes the review of the planning department's review of the applications, and I'm certainly available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reed. Very thorough review, I think, of the issues that that council has to consider with regards to this particular item. I'm not sure why we're beeping, but hopefully that doesn't continue. All right. So I think, as I understand things, Mr. Chauvin is with us. And if council will consent, perhaps Mr. Chauvin will add any further light that makes sense. I'm not seeing any objections at this point. So, Mr. Chauvin, you have the floor. I'm going to invite you to keep it as brief as possible because we're starting to sweat in here. And I think we would like to take our break. So if you could, Mr. Chauvin.
This is why I'm sitting in my air-conditioned basement.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. My name is Pierre Chauvin. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning. Here in support of this application by the number company and owned by Mr. Nizar Mawani. I do want to take the time to thank Susanna for the very thorough presentation, and I'm not going to repeat anything in that presentation. It's very well done, and just want to thank her for all her help to date in bringing this application forward, and also your own staff, particularly Mr. Snell, who's been instrumental in helping behind the scenes on some matters that I'll speak to. I'll speak to the 4 matters that Ms. Reed raised, and that's related to the commercial need and demand to 2031, the affordability or attainable housing aspect, the density, and finally the traffic. So with respect to the commercial, the Altus, just to be clear, the Altus report just identified the potential. It's not making a recommendation with respect to how much should be proposed on here. They're just simply identifying the potential for commercial. They've also identified the need for up to 446,000 square feet of commercial space in 2031. That's a lot of space. But keep in mind, as you know, in North Listowel, the municipality owns a lot of land, and I've been involved in that particular aspect as well with the municipality. And there's upwards of 400 square feet of potential commercial space on Wallace Avenue on its own, on lands that the municipality will own, it does own. Added with the 14,000 that we have, the 33,000 that's the max potential on the mixed use lands to the south of us, Twomley. And not to mention some of the recent developments that you've had just even approved tonight, and in terms of no quarter holdings, as well as the previous approvals you had for some restaurants and commercial space was upwards of additional 20,000 square feet. So my purpose in summarizing all of this is that combined, you will be achieving the commercial space that is projected 2031. It's not like this proposal is not proposing any commercial. This is a mixed-use development, and really this is growing in popularity. Appreciate it's newer to Listowel in Perth County in general, but it's not a new concept. We see it throughout our downtowns everywhere, mixed use. And the nature of commercial uses is changing. Has changed dramatically with the pandemic. And big box stores are no longer with the change in the retail environment, online shopping, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to go on about that, but all my point is that we have and are providing sufficient commercial space. I do also want to mention that there are some particular challenges with this property now, with the presence of Pioneer. Unfortunately, when that severance occurred, access was not granted. Vehicular access was not granted to our property. And we have been struggling and trying over the last year, trying to work with the owners of Pioneer, so your CAO and even the manager of planning at the county to try to bring them to the table and get them to provide us access. As some of you can appreciate, with any good commercial site, the more accesses you have, the more functioning, the proper functioning and successful the commercial site would be. And essentially, without an access through the gas station, we're limited to, we do have an access on Kincaid, but also we'll have an access on Twomley. But just the added entrance would allow for some cross-purposing. But that's fine. We've designed a site that can function independent of the gas bar. And in the fullness of time, if that does ever open up, our site plan that we presented, that Susanna presented this evening, does provide that opportunity to extend a laneway out to them if that ever gets, if that's ever permitted. So, so that's one challenge. Obviously, the configuration of this property now with the severance of the gas bar is a little challenging as well to make it work, configuring buildings around sort of a box that's been taken out of a nice rectangle. And the last thing is something that most people aren't aware of is, unfortunately, there's a restrictive covenant that has been registered on title that further limits the types of commercial uses that we can have on this particular property. It limits, and this was put in place with Pioneer to prevent, effectively, I believe, to prevent competition. And so it prohibits further gas bars, which is understandable. But it also goes on to prohibit QSRs, or quick service restaurants, i.e. takeout restaurants and those types of things. Also prohibits other types of uses. So there are some further limitations on the types of commercial uses that would be permitted. So compounded with all these issues, it does lend us to try to think out of the box a bit and create a mixed use development to try to kind of tick off several boxes at the same time. One being the providing the planned function of a commercial use, but also intensifying this block with residential uses to try to what we call create a complete community where people can live, shop, and play all in the same area. We have a lot of commercial uses in the area, and people don't always need to drive or don't have the means to drive. So people now living here would be able to walk into those various places, either to work or shop or do a variety of activities. So the intent is that it is mixed use. This is, like I said, something that is growing in popularity throughout the planning world. It's also a means to try to encourage intensification, curbing urban sprawl, all those good things. So that then leads me to the whole affordability aspect. As you've heard and as you've seen through the correspondence with United Way, my client has been working and trying to partner with them to bring affordable housing and as part of this development, and are committed to provide up to 15% of the units in here in this development as affordable housing. That's as defined by CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. They have what is called as an MLI Select program, which is a grant program. And provided that we are zoned and we're selected for this grant program, we would be provided funding for up to 15% of the development to be affordable. And the way they define affordability is it means 30% of the median rental household income. And within Ontario, in rural Ontario, that effectively equates to a rent around $1,040 a month. If you're taking the whole national average, it probably equates to $1,172. So somewhere between that range, and this fluctuates every year as they produce sort of that median. But that's the intent, is to commit to providing up to 15% of the total units in this development to be affordable, as defined by the CMHC MLI Select program, as well as an additional 15% to be totally accessible, so that that people can access these units with more people with mobility issues, etc. So that's what I want to bring forward to you this evening. And then the third point regarding the density, I appreciate there are targets in the official plan. As we all know, these documents are well overdue with respect to a need for an update and to be more reflective of current trends. I would be my opinion that what's proposed with respect to the concept before you is not dense. I think it's an appropriate density for the size of this property. We have appropriate amount of parking for or will have the appropriate amount of parking for what's proposed, and it certainly will be compatible, in my view, with respect to the neighboring residential areas. We have, and if I can just share my screen briefly, and just to speak to that compatibility, I'll just a couple of issues that, with respect to compatibility, that we tend to look at are shadow, and sort of another aspect is angular plane. So what I'm showing to you is and I appreciate it's probably rather small, but it's a shadow study of the proposed development at different time periods within the year and during the day. So the first row is at the spring equinox. The second or middle row is during the summer. And then the last row at the bottom is at the fall equinox. We typically don't look in the winter because of obviously most people, the shadow impacts are generally viewed in terms of impacts on amenity spaces and surrounding land uses. In the winter, we're not usually outdoors in our amenity space or amenity areas. But generally you can see in different time periods, 10 o'clock, 12, 2, 4, and 6 as the day progresses. And I'm just going to focus on the spring and summer because basically the spring and the fall are effectively the same because the sun is at the same point in the sky. And you can see generally the shadows are pretty self-contained on our site. There is a minor encroachment in the morning on the adjacent residential. These are proposed to be townhouses in the Nickel subdivision. There's a minor encroachment shadows in the rear yards, but that would be, my opinion, it's very minor. It's less than a 2-hour period. Typically, you try to not have shadows more than five consecutive hours at a time period. And then you look at the summer, and it's entirely self-contained within our property. So from a shadow perspective, even though, yes, we are probably going to be the tallest buildings in Listowel, 2 stories higher than the 4 stories that were recently approved by high construction, but it's still not having an impact from a shadow perspective. And then lastly, another aspect is angular plane. We looked at, okay, how will this view be from the adjacent residential homes? So on the left-hand side would be the townhomes that are proposed in the Nickel subdivision, and then there's just the cross section through our site. On the right-hand side would be Mitchell Road, and what's typically used as a standard is a 45-degree angular plane, so the line of sight. And what you try to do is try not to intersect that line of sight from either the ground. This is the bottom line is the ground, or eye level is the second line. And in both instances, at the property line, that angle, we're not intersecting that angular plane. So again, and lastly, as I think as Reed noted, through the design of the site, they'll certainly do certain things with respect to materials and colors and articulation in the building facades to help reduce the mass and impression of the height of the buildings. And so that'll be done through the site plan approval process. And just quickly, lastly, on the traffic impact side, I'll just note and reflect back on the site design that was presented and Ms. Reed's report or presentation. We have made some revisions to the plan. And of course, we will be updating that traffic study to reflect that revision. I will just note that we've shifted the access away from the Mitchell Street entrance to allow for more queuing, stacking of vehicles at that intersection. But we will be submitting an update to that traffic study to the county staff shortly to reflect the latest concept plan. But certainly look forward to continuing to work with the county and municipal staff going forward, and we'll be happy to answer any questions council has. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Ms. Reed, do you have any final comments at this point? Thank you. Okay, let's turn to council questions or comments at this point, noting that what we're doing here is collecting discussion items in advance of a public meeting that is planned at County Council for August 4th. Comments, questions? Councillor Duncan, let's go with you first.
I have one question, one comment. The comments regards to the traffic, it puts council in an interesting conundrum here. We want to densify our areas, but yet we deal with traffic problems, and we all know we've already got traffic problems to deal with in the municipality. So we need to save the farmland and build up, but it seems that puts us in a situation where we have traffic problems with regards to the queuing at the corner. And my second, it's a question, To Mr. Chauvin. Many of the other rental units built in the municipality recently seem to be geared to 55 plus renters. Will this development be geared to 55 plus renters as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, don't think that it'll be a geared specific. We're not planning a development that's going to be geared to a specific age group. It's really going to be attainable and affordable. And there also, I should add that there may be a mixture of either rental or condo. And the intent would be that the condo is more attainable type of units. We understand there is certainly a need and demand for that form of housing as well, within sort of that affordability range and for ownership. So we're proposing 4 buildings. There's the option to perhaps do 2 of the buildings as rental, 2 as condo. So those are the options that we're exploring. But again, it's all due to market conditions. Certainly, if we were to be building today, that's what we'd probably pursuing. But again, not something geared specific to an age group.
Okay, Councillor Behrens is next.
I was just wondering if you could put the most recent concept back up on the screen. Because it's quite different from what's in the documentation that we received. So it's kind of hard for us, for me personally at least, on the fly to do a real changeover. And I guess my concern is, we've always thought, there's certain things that North Perth does need. One of them's a hotel. I guess, me personally, I was thinking that this would be a reasonable property for that concept. So if we're putting all residential or a good bulk of residential in there, then in my mind, and I haven't had a chance to really look at the final one yet, it's just that we're giving up a lot of what I consider to be commercial retail property that is exactly where you want it to be for commercial retail property in order to have residences. And, they always talk about the compatibility and things like that. I'm really not sure I would want to rent next to a gas station. I just need a bit more time to kind of think about this change in concept from what we've received.
Okay, thank you. I don't know that we have an option with regards to the county council meeting on this, right? This is scheduled for August 4th?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The intention is to bring it back to North Perth Council. So August 4th is a public meeting.
Right.
And the intention is, following the public meeting, that we would be working with MHBC and their client on the issues that were addressed.
Okay. But you do appreciate the concern that Councillor Behrens expressed, which is that this has been a little rushed. This July 15th proposition has come in a little late in terms of our work as a council to consider it, right? I'm not holding anyone responsible. I'm just pointing out the concern, and I think Councillor Behrens has represented that concern pretty well.
Respectfully, if they knew that they were heading to a public meeting on the 4th, and given the summer schedules, which is pretty clear and listed, my concern is you're asking us to kind of give you a heads up on what we like and don't like, what we want and we don't want, in a meeting that, quite frankly, has been a lot of document heavy in the reading. And, we've read it, but then we come with a complete change. And I'm sorry, that's my comments.
Okay, who's next? Councillor Andreessen, you have your hand up. Let's go with you next.
Thank you, through you, Mary Kasenberg. I was shocked when I saw this diagram come on, because that's not what I was prepared to see after reviewing the documentation. And now, as I look at it, I'm a little confused. So at the top, I'm seeing parking. So the red and the orange and the blue, those are parking spots for each coordinating building. Is that a road coming through there? Is that a street, or is that just access to the development? It's access to the development. Okay, I'm not a fan of that kind of parking configuration because of when we talk about traffic and people unloading families and groceries and trying to cross traffic to get into the building. Yeah, I wasn't really keen about that kind of configuration. When I looked at the original plan, this looks like a very reasonable type of parking configuration, but when I look at the new plan, I'm not overly, impressed with how parking is organized in this one. That's my comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Susanna, for your report, and Pierre for your reports as well. Just a little bit of history here is that this 6-acre parcel was originally designated for commercial development back just before it was adopted in the county official plan in 1997. Yes, that's 1997. It was always intended that we were going to see commercial development on this west side, and that was in and around the time we had the Zehrs and then Zellers on the east side of 23. So we waited a long time to see some commercial development happen here with the Pioneer Gas Bar some 4.5 years ago, maybe 5, I guess. But Pierre mentioned in his comments something which I find very difficult from a municipal perspective to accept. I certainly understand it from a planner standpoint, but when individual property owners, private property owners, put on restrictions which are contrary to the provisions under A, an official plan, and B, a zoning bylaw, which were appealed and went to the Ontario Municipal Board as it existed then. They've really tied the hands of any development on the surrounding 4.5 acres. And if that, in fact, is the reason why we're seeing this development concept here, yes, it puts us in North Perth and County Council in a conundrum. Yes, we need affordable housing. The market is not going to change in terms of the need for affordable housing. We have needed it for decades. We have talked about it and talked about it, and it's only becoming more and more apparent. But frankly, as previous councillors have mentioned, now today, at a council meeting, now is not the time to drop 3 new slides on a council at 9:30 at night when we had a 362-page agenda. And we take our issues seriously. Councillor Barron's raised that point, Councillor Andreessen, and I think it's great to see latest concepts. But by heavens, please put it in our agenda package so we are not comparing what we've read, what we've viewed, and today seeing what we have here. One of the critical issues here when we talk about, yes, it's for density and so on, is yes, design. But the people that are living there, in the original concepts, there was no significant play space, not just grassed area. I see on the latest concept there are some sports fields, perhaps soccer pitches, I can't tell for sure. But when you look at the number of people that are going to be living in these buildings, is that enough? Now I know in the grander scheme, this is a large subdivision, and in the southwest corner, there is proposed to be a park. That is years away from development. So what is going to happen between, if this proposal is approved, when people are going to be able to take their children to go play on the west side of 23 into a park? Susanna raised a point in her presentation about commercial and about what we as our municipality think, where we want to see the commercial nodes happen and so on. Previous councils have put us to the point where we are. We've had the Alta study that talks about this, and yes, we're waiting further presentation on the county official plan. But this proposal goes contrary to our need, like, unless I have mislabeled some of the comments that Pierre had, you need to have a play-by-play commentary exactly where the commercial is already in terms of development. What's approved, what's proposed, what's zoned, and could go ahead tomorrow. Tonight's not the time for that, and I have gone on long enough, but I am concerned to see the proposal that we have here now presented here tonight at this time, and I am concerned just from a timing perspective. If we have more time to discuss this and all the implications, more than happy to do so, but I think tonight is just a first chapter in a conversation. That's my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else with comments? Councillor Richardson, let me get your mic. There you go.
Thank you, and I have to concur with the comments that have been raised by other councillors this evening, and Alan spoke very well. Councillor Rothwell, my apologies, that, yeah, just throw this at us right at the last minute and do a total 180 of what was proposed in an incredibly document-heavy agenda. I just find that, as Councillor Rothwell had made mention, that I think this should be the start of a discussion point. It's unfortunate that that's the way it's been decided to be played out, but it's, I think it's certainly needs to be discussed further, in my opinion, but it's just way too late, too far down the garden path.
Thank you. I think that's why I tried to clarify what the next steps were in this process. And as we understand it, this is going to a public meeting that is scheduled at Perth County Council on August 4th. Can I just, I want to ask a technical question, and Councillor Burns will get there. After that meeting, what is envisioned in the process as next steps?
Envision that staff would continue to work with the developer on the issues that were identified. And we're interested in, I mean, the comments that council is offering tonight are certainly will inform our discussions.
Okay, so there's been a list
will be brought back to council again.
There's been a mix of comments from councillors tonight, and I just want to make sure we clarify them. The first is that I think there's a sense that sort of our work has been short-circuited a little bit by a late arriving proposition for the site plan or the layout of this property. And council is taking some or expressing some concern or even objection to the fact that it comes at the last minute and we haven't had thought time. And I think that's a fair criticism. I think there were a few other pieces of the puzzle that were mentioned. We heard about park space, thank you. We heard about parking and parking alignment. I think there's a few others, right? So, there are some points that need obviously to be brought to the county council meeting, the public meeting, but how do those get injected into that discussion at that point? I think it's important that I and this council know that.
Certainly, if North Perth Council would like to provide comments to County Council for their consideration on August 4th, you could certainly do so tonight. The department isn't I don't have a summary of what North Perth's recommendation might be, but that doesn't preclude you offering your comments. My critical role was to review the document and review the documents that have been submitted and identify what the planning issues are. And that was the intention of the review that I offered.
Okay, so I think we can acknowledge that the report that we received was meaty and substantial, and yet what we saw here tonight was a little bit different than that, and that's part of the frustration. I see that CAO Snow would like to jump in here. Which microphone number are you, CAO Snow? 13. Okay, go ahead.
So certainly I concur with the planning department's process on this, but I do think what's going before a county council is an official plan amendment to consider a mixed-use site. A lot of what we're talking about tonight is the details of what that mixed-use site might look like at some point through the zoning process or the site plan process. So I think fundamentally, council needs to decide if we want to proceed with a mixed-use site first, and then work out the details of what that mixed site will look like in the end. And although I certainly agree with some of the comments that Councillor Rothwell has made, this site has been available for commercial development for almost 25 years, and we've seen very little development except for the Pioneer Gas Bar. And I think fundamentally, and that's I think what both the planning department and the county or North Perth staff have been wrestling with is the need for commercial versus the need or really potential need for high density attainable housing in our community. And that's really when I look at the application, that's kind of the trade-off we have to consider in this, is we could pack the site with 50,000 square feet of commercial, but would we be doing our community a disservice by maybe discounting some of the potential for attainable housing on the site as well?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Behrens, I've seen your hand up for a bit, so if you want to weigh in again.
My apologies. I didn't understand we were only being asked to consider a mixed-use official plan amendment. I thought we were asked to consider option, I'm going to call it option C, or the most recent. I thought that's what you were asking us to consider and give feedback on. My sincerest apologies if you're simply and truly asking, would we consider a mixed-use proposal on this property? I'm not so sure you're going to tell me the answer that I'm waiting for, and I know Pierre is just almost jumping out of his skin. I don't want to slow you down. It's not my intention to slow you down, but from my perspective, and it's sincerely an opinion of one, I would highly recommend canceling that public meeting on the 4th and giving North Perth the opportunity to decide what they want to see in their community, because you've asked so many questions on one parcel of land. And I prefer to do, when we're doing things, if we're going to decide what density is in the fringe, then we're going to decide what density is in the fringe. We're not going to decide what it is in the fringe at this particular property. And I think there's a difference between what the planners want to do, planning department wants to do, and what's really good for North Perth. And this side of the table is working for North Perth. So for it to go to the county and get an opinion from the county is really, truly great. But we've been in that situation before where North Perth has been at odds with the county, and one said yes and one said no, and I don't want to go there. So, you know, you're asking about traffic, you're asking about density. We've already talked about lack of green space for all these people who are renting, because you are assuming they have a car so that they can go to another park that's not going to be there. So I don't know if it's possible, but that would be my recommendation. End of my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Let's turn to Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks very much, Todd. One of the considerable issues is not just mixed uses here. We talk about complete streets, we talk complete communities, and so on. If a number of things that we've learned as our communities across the world, really, is that through the pandemic, is that people living in higher densities need space. And if we want to just segregate out for a minute the blocks that are proposed or the units that are proposed, 6 stories and so on, in my view, the best place for those types of apartment buildings is close to green space. It always used to be that case. But now it seems that we want to put higher densities in less desirable locations. And when I'm saying less desirable, I mean closer by roads, in terms of high order roads, like Highway 23, for example. or commercial uses and so on, which may not necessarily be, as we heard earlier in the meeting, the best spot to want to live next to in terms of a gas station and so on. Yes, we all need a gas station, but do you want to live right next door to it? And not just, we don't put one family next door to it in terms of the single detached dwellings being proposed and so on. We're going to put 6-unit apartment building with X number of people living in there. From a land use planning perspective, I'm not necessarily sure that that's exactly what we want to have in our community. I think that we might want to rethink this in terms of moving forward and what truly is mixed use here. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we see here. This is what the proponent has brought forward, and I know economically that's going to drive the figures here and so on. This proponent has the problem in terms of what Pioneer has put on as a restrictive covenant in terms of the uses. The municipality of North Perth did not put that on. It was an abutting property owner that sold the property then to someone else. So that's a conundrum that they're going to have to fix. I am concerned in terms of what's being proposed here, in terms of, is this the best place for this number of people? And is this, right for our community? So that's the biggest questions I think that we have as this council. And if we need to convey that through to our county councillors for the meeting, if it's not postponed on the August 4th, is that loud and clear is that we need time to review this in light of what is proposed in our community. And as both Susanna Reid and Pierre Chauvin said, this is not the first mixed-use development that we've got, and it won't be the last one. But the legacy of this will be, if it's built and if it doesn't work, it may very well be the last one, because people won't want to live there, and then it will be an economic problem. So anyways, those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum?
Yes, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you, Suzanne and Pierre, for your comments. We can all sense that it's overwhelming for us, and we can really sense some frustration out there. I think it came to us very quick. I think we need to maybe postpone this public meeting and give us some time to digest this. There's been some comments out here. I think we need to sit back and take a look at some positive things about it, whether we're looking for commercial, we're looking for density, we're looking for attainable. Sometimes this is out of our hands, and here it is at our hands now. Maybe it is not the right spot for this, but at that time, times being said as well, people choose to where they want to live. That being said, a lot has been discussed this evening. I think we need to sit back. I think we do, as Councillor Barron says, cancel this meeting. It's come to us very quickly, but let's work with the developers to come up with a solution that's maybe in the best interest for all of us and for the entire municipality of North Perth. Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Kellum. I'll come there. Just as a comment, I think that the public meeting that's scheduled for Perth County Council, there needs to be consent from the applicant if there's going to be any change, delay, or postponement of that meeting. So, I think that would have to be worked through with the applicant and with their consent. CAO Snell looks like he wants to weigh in, so go ahead.
I just think and I think this is a reason why there was no recommendation tonight. One of the things that both North Perth staff and county staff and even the applicant want to hear from is the public. And that was really the intent of the public meeting. We're not proposing that there be any decisions made by county council at the August 4th meeting. We would like to hear from the public because I think it's important that they have their say on this application. And this is why I always advocated that we have public meetings in North Perth instead of the county. But this is the first opportunity for the public to have some comment on this application. Rather than cancel it, I would consider we just go ahead with it and then have the planners bring back some of the feedback we get at that public meeting, because I think that's important in how we proceed from the staff level on this application.
Okay, interesting. Councillor Andreessen, I'd like to try to limit some further debate here. I think we're getting to the fatigue point and we're not being all that productive anymore. But Councillor Andreessen, please.
And I appreciate that, CEO Snell. Thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. It's just that even for our public, our community, this is the first time they saw this flashed on the screen just like us. And so I can imagine how frustrated they may be as they see this flashed on the screen and they can't even, like, we don't have a copy of it, they don't have a copy of it. They can't even comment on it because it's flashed on the screen. So I really feel it's unfair for, not just for us as a council, but for our community, from a, public comment perspective.
I suspect as we understand, there will be public meetings and consultations that provide the public with the opportunity. I think perhaps one of our reservations as a council, as we hear about that, though, is that it's going to be in Stratford. And that's something of an issue, right? Because this is a significant step that this council would have to consider. And we'd like to hear from as many people who have vested interest and an opinion about this as possible. I think, if I may, there's a challenge with these kind of propositions because they come with something of a site sketch, but it's not really the intention to get caught up in the details of the site sketch at this point. I think that, generally speaking, the proposition is, do we believe that there's a reasonable purpose or intent to have a mixed-use development there, as the CEO Snell has mentioned, and it's pretty darn easy when someone puts a visual in front of your face to say, oh, let's go down that rabbit hole and talk about it. And rightfully so. At some point, we need to have that opportunity. The question is, do we understand what that point is? Because if it goes to the county, as Councillor Burns has said, and they make one decision, and then it comes back here and we're more reserved or have a different opinion, then that puts us at odds with our political system and our processes, and that's not in the best interests of this community and these kinds of decisions. Councillor Richardson, and then we'll go to Ms. Reid, and then we're going to come back to the resolution and move this along, if you don't mind. Councillor Richardson.
I'll just be very quick about it. I'll just be very quick about it. Is the county mandated to have the meeting in Stratford? Does it have to be Stratford? Can the county meeting can it go around? Could it be here? On 4th, or at the date that is determined? Is it adamant that it's in Stratford?
CEO Snell is smiling, yes. Go ahead.
So certainly, North Perth Council and previous councils have advocated to have the meetings at the local level. We did try that for a while. I don't think there was any problem from our end of it not working, but certainly County Council made a decision to take back the official plan meetings to be held at the county. And that's been in the case for some time now. So at this time, the official plan meetings will be held at the county.
Okay, Ms. Reid, you wanted to have another comment? Mr. Chauvin's praying at the other end. I see the way his hands are folded, so...
If you can indulge me for just a brief moment, I can add something to what CEO Snell said, and I won't be long, but I'm in your hands.
Yes, keep it brief, please.
If there is opportunity within the Planning Act, to have more than one public meeting, and if it's desired that North Perth wants to have their own informal meeting at North Perth Council, then you would have the authority to do that and can do that. And I would encourage that. I'd also like to mention there's going to be a public meeting for the zone change. There's also a site plan review process, which will come back to council for the agreement. So there are other steps in this planning approval process. This isn't the one stop, and I apologize for dropping the concept on you this evening, but again, that's all it is this evening, is a concept to help you visualize what we're talking about. So Yeah, you're like you mentioned, Mayor Kastenberg, sometimes it's easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole and start picking apart all the details. That was really not the intention, but we've heard your comments, and they're very valid comments in terms of amenity space and parking, and I even heard earlier EV parking. Those are all things that we're going to deal with at site plan. But anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to give Ms. Reid the last word here, I think, before we consider a resolution. So, Ms. Reid?
It's very beneficial for me to hear all of council's comments, and I appreciate all of I think I'm new to North Perth, so I'm learning, and it's great to be here in person tonight. I appreciate very much the CAO's observation that what council is invited to consider tonight is, or asked to consider, is with regards to we're at the OPA level. So it's very helpful to me to hear how frustrating it is for you to receive something tonight, and I will take that under advisement. And if it also seems to me a benefit to council to receive it tonight, as we want to begin the public discussion. So this feels to me like the beginning of the discussion in the public. And I know that many people will be watching the meeting tonight. They will learn about the application. And I'm sure that all members of council will have good conversations with people following tonight. That will inform the development. The meeting, while it is at County Council, the public meeting is on August 4th, is an online meeting. So if anybody's interested in joining online, I think that's for folks, for folks who have access to the internet, it's a pretty accessible forum. So those are all my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. And I think this council will want to consider, and CAO Snell, I draw it to your attention, and Clerk Klein, the possibility of another public meeting that is held locally at some point in the process fairly soon. It did seem like there was some resonance or interest in that idea at this table. So let's figure out if that can be done, and we look forward to some guidance there. All right, I have a resolution for consideration. Let's take it where it goes. That North Perth Council receives a report titled Perth County Official Plan Amendment 206, submitted by 100664825 Manitoba Limited, care of Nizar Mawani, dated July 18th, 2022, affecting lands described as Part Lot 30, Concession 1, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, for discussion in advance of the public meeting scheduled at the August 4th, 2022 meeting of Perth County Council. Can I invite a mover for this? Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you, and Councillor Duncan is our seconder. Any discussion or debate on the resolution? Really, all we're doing is receiving the report at this point. Let's hope that eScribe is still alive and well. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Ms. Reid, thank you for facilitating a little bit with us tonight. We appreciate that. Mr. Chauvin, thank you for your attendance and answer to questions and comments. Council, I think we desperately need a health break. So let's take 7 minutes. Return here at 10:05 p.m. if you would. Okay, I think we're back. Let's change the inputs here. Thank you. All right. So next up is item 5.7.3. In this item, Council is invited to submit a recommendation to Perth County Council pertaining to revisions proposed to the phasing of a planned subdivision in the Listo Ward, commonly known as the Lunar subdivision, including delegation of authority to the county's manager of planning for the future phasing plan. Ms. Reed, the senior planner for the County of Perth, is our planning lead on this file. Ms. Reed, again, you stand before us. The floor is yours.
My understanding is that council has some familiarity with this development. This is a Lunar subdivision which was had received draft approval in 2004. The slide on the screen now shows the location of the property. It is east of Tremaine. This property is 40.6 acres and is proposed to be developed as a residential subdivision. So if you wouldn't mind just scrolling to the next slide, there is a special policy area on the property that permits a residential development, and the property is zoned R4, which is the residential zone 4 in the North Perth zoning bylaw. The slide on the screen now shows you that it's outside of the settlement area of North Perth, so it's I think if you press the screen one more time, we'll get the red star again. Oh, no, I forgot it. Sorry. So this is the subdivision as proposed. Please advance. So this is the entire subdivision as proposed. It was recently, the County Council recently approved a 1-year extension of this, which was the 4th extension. So the draft approval deadline is now October 20th of this year, 2022. So if you would just advance it one more time. So the request at this time from the developer is to modify the approved draft plan of subdivision to define phase 1 as shown on this lotting plan. So that's the first request, and then the second is to add conditions so staff have the ability to approve future phasing limits. And the text is on the screen there. So the recommendation from the planning department is that North Perth recommend to County Council the modifications be approved as requested.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reed. Questions or first comments on this matter from Council? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution. Oh, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor Todd. Through you, can you, and thank you for your report, Susanna, could you just confirm for us with these blocks, because what I'm seeing here is not exactly what I think I see in the plan that's approved. Like what's the range of lots that are proposed in blocks 24, 23, part of 22 and 21? I think that's what it is, because these are lotless blocks.
Yes.
And this proposal for section 1 has a total of 22 units, one of which I think is a semi. The rest are all singles. Is that true?
It appears that way, yes. Yes. There might be a semi at the north.
There might be one other semi. I can't tell for sure.
It looks like 22 and 21 are semis, actually. So the question, you're asking me if I could identify where phase 1 is on the larger subdivision?
Yes, I'd just like to know that, and just while you're thinking about that, but what the concern I have here is that we've talked around this council table before, when we have lotless blocks and we have a range of dwelling unit types, around this table, I've said it before, I think we should encourage and support the higher end as opposed to the mid or lower end. And if that can be understood through and agreed to by this council and make that comment through to the planning department, I'm satisfied. I am not satisfied if we continue to get the middle to low end on the densities. I'm not trying to push for more density than already approved, but I'd like to get at least the densities that are anticipated, especially in this time that we know We need more affordable housing. So that's all I'm saying. The broken record is here, and I'll keep playing it. So.
I understand. I think, we're seeing, in these applications that we know that there's a density intention for the whole subdivision, but what we're seeing in the earliest phase is the lowest or lower density relative to the scale, if I'm following the bouncing ball. And I think it's a point that's well raised, that we should have a sort of smoothness across the phasing for the density target if we can achieve that. So. Worth us thinking about, and I'm not sure how we act on this at this point in time, but I would concur with Councillor Rothwell's concern. Anyone else with comments or questions on this one? Ms. Reid, do you have any response or thoughts on that?
With response, I can respond to the first question. So on the larger plan, it shows Street 7 coming out to Tremaine, and that is that is where the phase 1 is. Is it? The comments with regards, so this file has been, received draft approval in 2004, so it's been considered 4 times in my understanding since then. So I guess I would think that any consideration with regards to affordable housing and attainable housing and density would have been considered when it was first draft approved. That's what I think.
Okay, fair enough. But I think we understand now that there's going to be a series of phases in this bill.
That is
right?
what the developer is requesting, yes.
Sure. Okay, any other questions or comments at this point? Let's look at the resolution that North Perth Council receives the report entitled Request for Modification of Draft Plan Approval for the Lunar Subdivision File Number NP-04-01, and that North Perth Council recommends to Perth County Council that the Lunar Subdivision File Number NP-04-01 prepared by MHBC dated July 21st, 2021 be modified as follows: that Phase 1 be described as shown on Lotting Plan Phase 1 Option 1 dated July 21st, 2021. Is that right? Prepared by MHBC as lots 1 to 22. That the following condition be added to the draft plan conditions: that, quote, the subdivider agrees to stage the development of the subdivision in a manner satisfactory to the county's manager of planning, that the final plan submitted for approval may incorporate a lot pattern for all blocks in which single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse lots are permitted at densities approved with the draft plan conditions. Can I call on a mover for that one? Okay, so why don't we get it moved and seconded if that's the will of council, and then we'll bring in. Okay, so Councillor Behrens is the mover, Councillor Richardson is the seconder. Thank you. Councillor Behrens, go ahead. Let me just.
I really do think we have to sit up and pay attention to this. As you mentioned, that the densities were probably looked at back in 2004. A whole lot has changed in the not only the Perth County official plan, but the PPS and the recommendations for the affordable housing, and all of that have changed. My concern with this phasing, and it's simply a concern, and I think you need to watch this particular subdivision, is that they're going to come in and they're probably going to build single detached homes. And then they're going to say, well, the market's there, we need to change this. Our phase 2, we're changing it to single detached homes. We've seen it, been around the block a wee bit. We've seen this time and time again where it sells out quickly because everybody's hungry for a single family home. And then all of this land doesn't meet the density that it required in 2004, but I truly believe the density that was required in 2004 is slightly different than what we as a North Perth Council would be requiring today. And I think that's a fair statement, given all the other changes in the legislation. So I just think you have to be mindful and keep an eye on the phasing aspect of it.
And maybe I can ask a question. The resolution suggests that we sort of delegate the phasing approach to the manager of planning for the County of Perth. I'm not quite sure how to ask this question, but you've heard Councillor Burns' suggestions and comments, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. And so I think the concern is, is that the lens that the manager of planning at the county will use in looking at the subsequent phasing? Will we get there in terms of making sure that the density, which probably is grossly inadequate for today, is at least upheld to the original standard?
The planning department is raising conversations about affordable and attainable housing with every developer, every residential developer. So it's something that we're doing across the board. For this file, this received draft approval in 2004. And the extension has been considered 4 times and granted 4 times. So I think that discussions with regards to affordable, attainable housing and density would have been held all of those times. At this point, the change that is being requested is a modification in order to define what is phase 1. So the staff recommendation is with regards to that specific question. I don't know that we have the latitude to raise that conversation at this point. I mean, Council could consider instead only approving the definition of phase 1 and not the request that staff be directed the authority to approve subsequent phases. But even at that point, I don't know if we have the latitude to discuss attainable housing as it already has received draft approval.
Yeah, I think we realize that that's the circumstance that we find ourselves in, the environment that we're in. Okay, let's go to Councillor Johnston next.
So we can't throw a clause in there that each phase must have singles, semis, like it can't just be all singles? We can't do that, can we?
Ms. Reid?
I see phase 1 has some semi-detached in it, but we couldn't put a phase in that modification too that every subsequent, it's too late to speak big words, but you know what I mean.
I mean, it would be a further modification, I guess, like the, I don't have wording prepared, but.
I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe Alan can likely figure it out.
Yeah, let's let Ms. Reid complete her thoughts if she has any further thoughts on this one. You understand
this is a modification to the subdivision, right? Like, so the subdivision is proposed to be modified by defining phase 1. So if council wanted to provide additional wording with regards to, I guess I would step back and say that in my observation, affordable and attainable housing is different than density. Directing that there would be a requirement for a certain number of affordable or attainable units, it may be something that could be incorporated into a modification. And I realize that Pierre Chauvin is the agent for this file, and he continues to be on screen. So you know there would be an opportunity to discuss it with Pierre as well.
Okay. Does council want to hear from Mr. Chauvin on this file at this point? Anyone object strongly to hearing from Mr. Chauvin at this point? I know it's late and we're feeling a little fatigued, but perhaps the opportunity is here to hear from the developer's agent, and that makes some sense. Mr. Chauvin, I'm trusting that you followed the conversation. We want, I think there's some expression of will at this council table, from some at least, that we see sort of a smooth approach to phasing that considers the density targets over the course of each of the phases to the extent possible. Did you want to comment on that?
Sure, I can just generally, I know this particular developer has always developed there are subdivisions in terms of a third, a third, a third. Third single, third semis, third towns. That's how they proceeded. That's been their motto. And that's not, as far as I know, is not changing with this particular subdivision. So that's just a general statement. The condition is worded in a way that the manager, presumably the planning department, as we're proceeding to register and bring forward other subsequent phases, they have the ability to ensure that we achieve the density that's on the draft plan and that we're providing the mix. I appreciate it's lotless blocks, and that was the intent to respond to the market needs. But like I said, our client is intended on doing a third, a third, a third, so they will be mixing the units. It's just this first phase, we're just trying to take a small bite of the market, get in the listable market, and as you'll see, the next phases it will be definitely the mix. And the way the condition is worded is the manager and the planning department will have the authority to make sure that the plan that's being presented for registration should have the appropriate mix that's on the draft plan and achieve the density that, at least the minimum density that's on the draft plan. I don't think, we'll have a problem in meeting that minimum. We have plans to go even higher, but again, that's for another day.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and I appreciate Pierre's comments and Susanna's. So when I look at on page 338 of our agenda, so the comments, so there's 3 single detached or 167 units in this plan with the lotless blocks, 26 to 40 semi-detached units, and 20 to 38 townhouses. So the minimum number of units we can expect is 213. The maximum we can expect is 245. And these are based on the plans with lotless blocks. They have said, they've calculated, this is how many units the minimum we can get, and this is the maximum we can get. There's a 32 unit difference between the two. And all I'm encouraging in my comments here is that the planning manager will go on that higher end to get the 32 units, as opposed to get us to 245, as opposed to the lower end giving us 213. And again, it's on page 338 of a report, and again, it's a difference between 20 to 38 townhouses, so that's 18 more townhouses, or 26 to 40 semis, so that's again 14 semi-detached units. And the number is the same no matter what for 167 singles. So I don't think we're going to see the developer go below the 167, but I would hope that we could see them go towards the maximum on the semis and the townhouses. That's my comment. Thank you.
And we will.
There may be opportunity to include that in the second clause that is in this resolution, right? To the effect that in the manner satisfactory the county's manager of planning with guidance to emphasize hitting the maximum targets stipulated in the plan of subdivision. That could be the solution, right?
Yep. That's fine.
Okay. So I think, let me just check with Clerk Klein. We have a motion on the floor already, right? This has been moved and seconded, this one? Okay, so we would need an amendment to add in the extra language, which would be to the effect of with guidance to hit the highest density target proposed for the subdivision. Okay. Can I get a mover to resolve to amend the original resolution with that additional language? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on the amendment, which is going to inject a new clause into the language? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Poor Sarah needs to catch up with us at 10:25 at night. We think she's ready, so let's have that vote. Not quite. This is not quite what we should be voting on. We should be voting on the amendment to the original resolution, and then we vote on the whole resolution. So I think we need to cancel this vote, the way it's presented. Sorry about that. Oh, it probably represented the entirety, but from a process perspective, we're considering adding an amendment to the original resolution, so we need to have a vote on the amendment, right? Can we, we'll be patient, when Ms. Jameson gives the nod to Ms. Klein, we can move.
Mr. Mayor, if I might suggest, perhaps we could just do the amendment by show of hands. And
Sure.
the motion as amended and described, that might be simpler.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's consider then the amendment to this resolution has been duly moved and seconded. We're voting on the addition of the language. That's the amendment. All those in favor? And that is unanimously carried. So now that means we can turn to the original resolution with the new language added to it. Are there any further comments or questions about this before we hold the vote through e-scribe? Okay, I'm not seeing any indication of concern, so let's have that vote as well. This is the total package. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much on that one. That's 5.7.3. Council, I'm aware of the hour. We may need to undertake a resolution in about 15 minutes if needful to extend the duration of this meeting. Let's keep our eye on it. All right, let's move then to item 5.7.4. Council is invited to submit a recommendation to Perth County Council pertaining to the proposed revisions to the conditions earlier approved for the Dalmich subdivision, which is in Atwood. Jerica Gilbert, a recent addition to the planning team at the County of Perth, is our planning lead on this file. Welcome at this late hour to your first North Perth Council meeting, Jerica. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kassenberg, and good evening to Council. Hopefully, can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, and I think you can hear me okay?
Just fine.
Awesome. All right, so similar to what we were kind of discussing in the previous application, so Dalmich Holdings has subdivision MP 1803 within the community of Atwood. The draft plan of subdivision was approved by Perth County Council in January 23rd of 2020. And as you can see kind of by the the parcel fabric over the aerial view, that phase 1 has been completed and the developer is interested into moving into phase 2. There is a holding provision already on phase 2, and what has been identified as the developer moves towards getting their permits, that the Ministry of Transportation has some comments and would like the County of Perth to consider amending the subdivision agreement to ensure that some operational needs are met with Highway 23 and Monument Road. The traffic impact study indicated that as the subdivision got close to the 109th unit, that a southbound turn lane would be required off Highway 23 onto Monument. So the amendments that are being proposed to be added as conditions to the subdivision agreement kind of functionally allow that to happen to ensure that the turning lane is built. So essentially, the reason why we're coming to council tonight is to get your feedback. There is 4 conditions proposed. One of the conditions, there is some flexibility afforded by the options that we could go. As indicated in my report, planning staff believe that of item 1, option 2 is best to meet the municipality's needs. So that would mean that the holding zone that is currently on for stage 2 for securities purposes would just be amended to ensure that the developer works with the MTO to ensure that that southbound turning lane is in place before the 109th unit is built. The developer will be able to build 108 homes up to that point. And both our planning team has been talking with the developer and the MTO. They've been circulated the same report and conditions that you see before you tonight. And the final recommendation will be presented to Perth County Council on August 4th. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer them, and thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you for the report. Council, questions or first comments? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution prepared for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report of the Council Planning staff for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommends the conditions proposed by staff be approved by Perth County Council. Councillor Rothwell will move this. Councillor Andreessen is our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Jerica, thank you. Well, congratulations on your first presentation to North Perth Council.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thanks. Let's move on to item 5.7.5. On this one, Council is invited to undertake the actions needed to exempt a parcel for residential development from part lot control, a process that generally leads to the creation of new lot lines in residential projects. We are asked both to recommend the action of Perth County Council and to approve a bylaw which would enable the exemption. The parcel is on Malcolm Crescent in the Listowel ward. Louisa Bacondio, a consultant planner to the County of Perth, is the lead on this file and will speak to it. Welcome, Louisa.
Thank you, Mayor Kazenberg. Good evening, Council, North Perth. I will try to keep this as brief as possible. I appreciate that it is quite a late hour. So the applicant, a number company 2459825 Ontario Inc., has filed this application to exempt the lands legally known as Block 2, Plan 44M81 on Malcolm Crescent from the part lot control provisions of the Planning Act. If I may, I'd like to share my screen actually so that I can have the plan available. All right. If you could let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Excellent, right. So if exempted, the applicant would be permitted to establish 6 units of a townhouse building on separate and conveyable parcels on the lands as previously described in the Listowel ward. The subject lands are located on Malcolm Crescent, as I mentioned, which is located off of Victoria Avenue South and south of Alma Street West. So these proposed lots and parts to be conveyed are shown on this plan as provided by the applicant and attached to the staff report in your agenda package. A 3-meter easement consisting of parts 10 and 11 here, as you can see, will provide the interior lots with access to their rear yards by way of this easement that runs through the middle of the yards. Actually, my apologies, that also consisting of parts 7, 8, and 9 as well. This access easement was intentionally located in the middle due to grading and noise berm located along the rear here, along the rear property lines, which makes it challenging to provide access along the rear. So therefore, the easement has been located throughout the middle. A stormwater management area for this proposed development is accommodated on Block 5 down here, just south of the subject property. The subject property is designated residential in the Listowel official plan and is zoned R47 in the North Perth zoning bylaw. The units on these 6 proposed lots would comply with the applicable provisions of the North Perth zoning bylaw. County of Perth is the delegated approval authority under the Planning Act for bylaws to remove part lot control for lands within North Perth and member municipalities of the county. Once the exempting bylaw is approved, the surveyor's reference plan, such as this, showing the lot lines, is completed and can be registered at the land registry office to create the lots. That summarizes the report and this application. I am available to take any questions should council have any.
Thank you very much, Louisa. All right, council, questions or first comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have two resolutions to deal with here tonight. On this one, the first, that the County of the Municipality of North Perth approves the application by 2459825 Ontario Inc. for the exemption of part lot control on lands described as part of Block 2, Plan 44M81, Malcolm Crescent, in the list to award Municipality of North Perth. If the proposed bylaw is adopted, it shall be forwarded to the County of Perth for approval. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Duncan, thank you. And seconder is Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. And now the bylaw enablement here, that bylaw number 98-2022, being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control part of Block 2, Plan 44M81, Malcolm Crescent list to award in the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I get a mover for this? Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you, and Councillor Rothwell as our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you, Louisa, for joining us at this late hour. Let's move on now to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you'd like to ask of staff or our committees? I'm not seeing any indication of that, so let's move forward then to item 7. We have received 3 items of correspondence which invite our action. For item 7.1, we have a request from Ms. Allison Brown, who intends to organize a fundraising walk or run with proceeds to the ALS Society of Canada in Listowel on October 15th, 2022. I can actually report that I have, in fact, participated in an event like this a few times, both held in Wingham. So the fact that we're getting it closer to home is rather nice from my perspective. Council, is there any objection to considering a motion to enable this? Do we have something prepared, Ms. Klein? No objection. Yeah. Do we have something prepared, a motion to act to close the roads as she's asked? Is that something to that effect? Will that work?
From Allison Brown as outlined in her correspondence.
Perfect. Councillor said. Yeah.
So this one and 7.1 and 7.2, both great causes. Can we just make sure that it's on our social media channels, just to make sure that everybody knows that the roads are going to be closed? Thank you.
A fair request, and it looks like the clerk will attend to that on our behalf. Okay, let's. Sorry,
as well, police and fire be notified.
Yes, and we'll need the resolution to indicate that appropriate authorities will be notified, Ms. Klein. Okay, so we have a general something written there that includes publicity and notification, if that's all right. I saw Councillor Rothwell wave his hand to move it. Councillor Enstedt's our seconder here. I'm hoping we have something prepared in eScribe. Let's give that a test. And it looks like we do. And that's carried. Similar request under item 7.2. This one is from Angela Stratton related to the annual Terry Fox Run, which is proposed in Listowel on September 18th, 2022. Council has any objection to considering a resolution in this matter? Ms. Klein, let's bring you in here on this one. Second verse, similar to the first.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe that Angela Stratton's requesting any road closures. I think she's just requesting that the route be approved. So that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the route for the annual Terry Fox Run on Sunday, September 18th, 2022, as proposed by Angela Stratton.
Okay, let me redirect to CAO Snell. We approve the route, but if we don't actually approve any supports for closing the roads or notifying authorities, are we doing a disservice to the request?
It would part of our change with our community events bylaws. We would typically work with the applicant to decide exactly what they're requesting. So maybe we do have some time that maybe we can reach out to, because it certainly depends on how long they're asking for the road to be closed. An hour and a half is okay, but if it's an all-day event, then that becomes a traffic issue as well. So why don't we, for tonight, pass the resolution as suggested by the clerk, and then we can follow up with the event organizer to work with our community events bylaw.
Sounds good. Anyone on council object to that? I think it seems like we have some time, so that's fine. So we've had a resolution read by the clerk. Thank you. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Johnston is nodding his head. Councillor Anstedt will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote. Okay, and that is carried. Thank you. And next up then is item 7.3. We have a request from the organizers of a monster truck tour, which is bringing an event to Listowel on July 23rd, 2022. They have asked for an exemption to the noise bylaw for time periods on that date. Council, anyone have an objection to considering a resolution to that effect? All right. Everyone's okay with that? Okay, so I have a draft here, if that's helpful, Ms. Klein. Just borrow it from last time. The Council of Municipality of North Perth provides an exemption to any timing regulations found in the noise bylaw for activities generated by the monster truck tour on July 23rd, 2022, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 9:30. So I'm giving them a half hour before and a half hour after the proposed windows that they've talked about. And that council directs staff to advise relevant parties of this exemption in order to avoid unintended enforcement. Seem fair? Councillor Barnes, you'll move that. Thank you. Who will be our seconder? Councillor Richardson. That was probably too fast for Ms. Jameson, but she might surprise us. If we can trigger a vote on this, we know what the intent is. Yeah, very good. And that is carried as well. Thank you. That brings us to agenda item number 8, which allows council to consider bylaws. As item 8.1, council is invited to appoint the bylaw enforcement and property standards officers. Any questions or first comments from council on this one? Seeing none, let's consider the resolution then. It's a bylaw enablement resolution as follows, that bylaw number 94-2022 being a bylaw to appoint bylaw enforcement officers, property standard officers, be introduced, read, and considered read for second and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for that one? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. And seconder is Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion tonight? I'm not seeing any indication of that, so let's move to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I just want to congratulate the Listowel Society on a very, very successful fair, and thank all of our volunteers and our directors for putting on our 4-day event, and we're really pleased with our results and the attendance. So we're glad to have a live event again for our community. Thanks.
And it was wonderful. Yes, and I think some applause is sort of due for this great achievement. Thank you very much to all of the team at the Listowel Agricultural Society and the many, many volunteers who responded to the call to support the event. It was well attended, very well attended, in fact, according to reports that I've heard. Councillor Anstedt, did you have an announcement as well?
Yeah, just briefly, Mayor Kasenberg, thank you through you. On Saturday, July 23rd, Listowel Technology Incorporated is celebrating their 25th anniversary. And so just wanted to make everybody aware of that feat and invite everybody to the open house scheduled for that afternoon from 12:30 until 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstedt, and I look forward to being in attendance and seeing where my son works. That's part of the fun. Okay, any other announcements for the benefit of the community at this hour? All right, I think it's prudent because we're going into closed session. CAO Snell, some comments?
I was just going to suggest, and certainly up to council, that we could defer tonight's closed session agenda item if due to the late hour, if that's the wish of council. There's nothing pressing or urgent, because it may take some time to have this discussion. So I want to give that council an option. Certainly we can defer to the next meeting.
I'm seeing some faces that look grateful for that suggestion, CAO Snell. So do we need to have a resolution that says we amend the agenda to delete the closed session meeting at this hour? Okay, so we should have a motion that says that council has decided to defer the closed session meeting and at this hour that was planned for this meeting to its subsequent meeting. Can we get a mover for that? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Councillor Johnston's nodding his head delightedly. Any discussion or debate? No, people are looking like bring on that vote. Let's have that vote. Thank you. I can safely say that's carried. All right. So as a mandated good practice at the end of our meeting, we consider the confirmatory bylaw. This is an act that allows us to confirm the activities of our meeting, all of them in the previous actions. And I'll read the resolution as follows, that bylaw number 101-2022, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Duncan, thank you, and Councillor Anstedt will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously, and that means that we have completed the deliberation and taken action on the business that did come before us with a little bit of a diversion of a closed session item. At this time, then, it's appropriate to consider a resolution to adjourn. I have one that is as follows, that the council meeting adjourns at 10:50 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, August 8th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Behrens, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Seiler. Any discussion or debate on this one? It's not debatable, is it? That's how late it is. All right, let's have that vote. Okay, we got you. All right, so Mark, Councillor Behrens is in favor, and there must be one more. There we go, we got everybody. All right, this council meeting is adjourned, and we meet again on August 8th, 2022.
Well done.
Oof.
Are we on?